Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, January 27th, 2016. The meeting is now called to order. Please take a moment to silence your devices. Mr. Paulson, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Erickson?
Here.
Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Hudes?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Vice Chair Kane?
Here.
And Chair Badami.
Here. Would everyone please stand and join Commissioner Hudes as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Town of Los Gatos strongly encourages participation in the public process. Members of the public may speak on any item on the agenda when it is heard or on any matter not on the agenda under verbal communications. To speak on any item, please complete a speaker's card located within the benches and follow the instructions on the back of the card. Commissioners received desk items tonight for items number 2 and items number 3. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to read the correspondence?
Yes.
Thank you. We have no requested continuances this evening. However, I believe we'll have some subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the Commission also serve on various subcommittees. I believe there was a lengthy Historical Preservation Committee meeting this evening, so I will look for a commissioner to share his report with us.
Commissioner O'Donnell and I attended the Historic Preservation Committee meeting at 4 o'clock and left about 12 minutes ago. And here we are. Items on the agenda was an initial review of the North 40 Phase 1, where the applicant was requesting demolition of 8 structures. That request was approved. We gave them specific guidance on historical aspects of the project, of the site that we would like to see preserved. And there's an application from 360 Bella Vista requesting approval to demolish single family, subdivide into 2 lots. We approved that. Yes, we did. I knew that. We approved that request for demolition. 94 Hernandez requested the property be removed from the structure of historic resources inventory. That request was denied. The applicant was asked to come back with the actual modifications that he desired to make to the property. 35 North Santa Cruz Avenue. This is a new Lolly and Pops commercial space. The architecture and site was approved by the Planning Commission at our last meeting. This was for use permits, conditional use permit. And this was for architecture on the facade, which goes to the Historic Preservation Committee. The architecture was good. The color was inconsistent with North Santa Cruz, and the applicant was asked to come back with alternative samples. On 16207 Short Road, there was a request to remove the structure from the Historic Resources Inventory. Commissioner O'Donnell pointed out that the extensive renovations done in 2002 made it a moot point that it was no longer on the inventory, so we agreed, and it's no longer on the inventory. 45 Broadway requested a modification of a previous approval for an extension of the house with a veranda, patio type structure, and that request was denied. 45 Broadway is a contributing house element to the Broadway Historic District. And 256 Bachman Avenue requested approval of exterior modifications. There were 4 of them, had to do with the door, the roof, the window, and a ceiling. What do they put on the ceiling? Skylight. Thank you. All 4 of those requests were approved. And that's the report from the Historic Preservation Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Kane. Commissioner Hanson.
My fellow planning commissioners weren't able to attend the meeting, but the last meeting of the Plan Development Study Committee was on January 14th. And the goal of the subcommittee was to review the plan development ordinance and determine what changes needed to be made. And that work was mostly finished as of our meeting on the 14th, and then we additionally had a continued discussion on the conditional use permits since they related to plan developments. And the committee thankfully was able to complete all of the work. So the next step will be to forward the plan development and conditional use permit language, as well as the recommendations from the committee to the Planning Commission, and then it will ultimately go to Town Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. We have one speaker card for verbal communications. I will be calling Joni Glimlin to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to us about an item that's not on the agenda.
Hi, I want to talk about Union Avenue near La Sune Court regarding the bus.
Okay, go ahead.
Regarding the bus situation from Hillbrook. Hillbrook has a stop that they made permanently on our corner of Union and La Swain and across the street, and children are running across, and people are parking there and they're congregating there. And this is a private bus company for profit. It's a business, and Hillbrook is a business. No one on our court goes to school there. No one, I don't think, across the street goes to school there. So how they got this bus stop was a couple of years ago, someone did use it on our block, but not anymore. And I don't think that we would like to have the bus stop on our corner because we haven't had it all these years we've lived there. And why would they make it on our corner when no one uses it from our block or across the street to go to school there? I know they have a problem in the community of Hillbrook with the parking and the traffic, but we didn't sign up for it. And and I don't think that a private business for profit is allowed in a residential area. So it's not a very good area for the children to run across the street on Union Avenue anyway, because it's a major thoroughfare. And at one point, Hillbrook had a guard come from the school to oversee the children. So obviously, it's a business run on my corner. And I would like that the situation stops and the children that go to the school have the bus stop where they go to the school. So if it's in their community or near their house, let them be inconvenienced by the stop. We shouldn't have to be inconvenienced on our corner. My bedroom faces Union Avenue, my house, and the people come out and congregate and talk, and they park by my driveway, and I really don't appreciate it. So I'd like it looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Polson, can you make a note of that for the appropriate parties, whether it be Public Works, Council, or Code Enforcement?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm moving on to the consent calendar, unless anybody else would like to speak to us with a speaker card on an item not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none. All right, the consent calendar, approval of minutes. We do not have any minutes to approve, so we will move on to our continued public hearing, which is item number 2. Item number 2 is 15735 Camino del Cerro, Architecture and Site Application S-15-063, requesting approval to demolish an existing single-family residence and construct a new single-family residence on property zoned R-18, APN 523-24001. May I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the site? Are there any disclosures from commissioners? Ms. Mosley, we're ready for your staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I trust Commissioner Kane actually made it onto the site today, or this time.
No, we didn't.
So as you recall, this application was considered by the Planning Commission on December 9th. The main concerns of the commission were in regards to the size of the residence in conformance with the neighborhood and its compatibility. Some of those items are related as well to the compatibility of a 3-car garage and the square footage associated with that, as well as looking at ways to increase the setback from the creek for the residents as well as for the driveway. The applicant came back with a proposal that reduces the residence by approximately 500 square feet. 400 and change of that is for the living floor area, and approximately a little over 100 of that is for garage floor area. The proposal also includes an increase in the setback from the creek from 15 feet for the residence up to 19 feet at its closest point. And then the driveway increase varies, but the increase is focused on the area where the trees are located on the adjacent water district site. So looking at the concerns that Commissioner Talsfor had in regards to trying to provide some extra protection to those trees. They did take that into consideration and look at ways to reduce the impact to those. So those are the changes that the applicant has incorporated, and they are here to answer any additional questions you have on that. Staff did give some feedback on the light well associated with the newly proposed cellar. If you have any questions on that, I'm here.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Are there questions of staff at this time from any commissioners? Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you for the report, and it was very good. I was wondering, the cellar as a new feature that wasn't in our last presentation on the 9th, and I noted that you had flagged the issue of the light well and its compliance with the cellar policy. My question was about the excavation. The applicant mentioned in some of their letters about trying to retain a lot of the excavated soil on site. Is there a policy that they need to comply with? I know there is in the hillsides, and this isn't in there, but is there a policy that needs to be complied with for the excavation of the soil?
There's not. It's something that definitely the commission can raise as a concern as far as the trucks that are going to be required in order to off-haul that. I do not have a number associated with the total cubic yards that would be associated with that and how they're going to accommodate that.
Okay, and then the second question I had was on the conditions of approval. Perhaps it was only my packet, or maybe there was no changes to the last conditions of approval from December 9th, other than the one you proposed about the light well. So I was wanting to ask, are the terms and conditions the same as December 9th, other than that?
They are, and staff proposed incorporating that additional condition, but you would have to incorporate that into the new conditions.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Mosley. We will now open the public portion of the hearing and allow the applicant and their team 10 minutes to address the commission. However, I do not have any speaker cards from the applicant and their team. Yes, you can. Mr. Jeans will be speaking.
Commissioners, you'd like it zoomed in?
Mr. Jeans, there's a dial. If you twist it clockwise, there you go.
Tony Jeans, Los Gatos, California. The areas that I've addressed, which is what I really want to focus on based on your last hearing, are to reduce the bulk size and mass. I've done that. The house has been reduced 10%. These are planning's numbers. The garage has been reduced 10%. The FAR has been reduced to 0.16, which is 735 feet under the allowable FAR. The garage FAR has been reduced, and it's 268 under the allowable FAR. And the height has been reduced. So that is where we've focused on trying to reduce bulk scale and mass. The garage, we didn't implement the comment about three-car garages not being compatible with the neighborhood. We did a survey, and we believe that it's compatible and that there are three-car garages in the neighborhood. I did hand that out, and I'll show you an overhead. The stone on the facade was previously addressed. It was brought up the consulting architect's concerns, we addressed them differently. We just regrouped it in a slightly different way. If you still have a concern on that, we will send our plans back to the consulting architect and have him read it, and we'll act whichever way he feels. But we feel that putting more stone on would be too much. The creek tree protection, we've moved it further away from the creek. The house is 4 feet away further. The driveway has been moved further away. The landscaping buffer has been put in to give a protection at the trees. And there's a very light fill proposed at the driveway location so that when the curb is put in, there is no excavation into the root system of the existing trees. And to catch up on a point that was which was brought up earlier, we're balancing the dirt on site. There will be no off-haul and trucking through the neighborhood and on the streets. This shows you the revised house. It's 23'3", and we believe that it does not have bulk scale and mass. We believe that bulk scale and mass would be more that appearance, which is close to the setback, high buildings instead of shorter buildings, and gable roofs. So that we have avoided. The 3-car garage. Here is the site. These are 3-car garages on all of these houses. That's a 4-car garage, and there's another 3-car garage here. So there are 7 immediate neighbors that have 3-car garages, and then there are a whole slew of 3-car garages across the other side of the street. And I don't know whether the commissioner who was concerned about that didn't go down that street, but there are a lot. So we don't think that that needs to be addressed. The areas in yellow show where the old house was. And so we've moved it further away from the street. This area here is where we pulled the driveway further out, and we've got a buffer all the way along the edge, which is going to be a planted buffer. This is the area of major concern because there are trees, so we've pulled it well away there. And we were able to do that because in pulling the garage back further, with the reduction in size, we were able to rotate the fire truck turnaround and make that work. So the reduction in size had the benefit of being able to achieve some of the other goals. We did put a cellar in. I can address the light well issue if that is a question. But the light well that we proposed in the plans is not acceptable in the current form. So we will work with staff to address that. But that is, that's not an issue that needs to be addressed, I don't think, at this meeting. But if you have questions, I can answer them. So if you have any questions of me, go ahead.
All right, Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Jeans? Seeing none. I don't see any speaker cards either for members of the public. You have, okay, we have one. Thank you for stepping up. All right, calling Adam Ward to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here today on behalf of Dean and Linda Duffy of 317 Escobar Avenue, and they've asked me to read this statement. They were unfortunately not able to be here today. But the project dwelling sits close to our property line from corner to corner of our lot. Therefore, we could be as impacted as any other property surrounding the project or more impacted than others. We were unavailable to attend the prior meeting and are not available this week, but respectfully provide our position here on this project. We did, however, watch a significant portion of the TV replay and were surprised by certain commissioners' statements. A non-exhaustive sampling of those statements will be provided with a response. The first statement by the commissioner, there are no three-car garages in the neighborhood. The response from the Duffys, actually there are 7 adjoining properties to the project with 3 or greater than 3-car garages. There are another 5 homes that have 3-car garages on the other side of Escobar from the homes adjoining the property. That is 12 3-car garages in close proximity to the project. Statement number 2, the height of this one-story project is too high at 24 feet compared to the neighborhood. The response, the project's property grade is a few feet below the property line of some of the Escobar homes, making their total elevation less impactful. 19 homes on Sierra Morena and on both sides of Escobar, either adjoining or across Escobar from where the properties adjoin, are 2-story. The project owners are encumbered by 2-story homes virtually all around them, and they are held to 1-story and going below grade. We stand deep inside our kitchen, about 15 feet, into our home and easily see over the proposed project of the 2-story homes on Sierra Moreno, which are greater than 100 yards away. The project elevation as presented is not impactful. Statement number 3, there is a cement culvert that runs the length of the property on one side, and the response, actually not. From our observation, the cement culvert does not run nearly the entire lot line. Statement number 4, several references to the dog on site. The response, we have not seen or heard of a dog there in over 15 years. We don't understand the relevance of those multiple comments of commissioners regarding a dog to the project's evaluation. Other examples can be brought forward. We do not know the project's owners, nor do we have a motivated interest other than to have a responsible decision made by the commissioners. As Los Gatos residents, we are most concerned as to how objectively these decisions and rulings are derived and how they can unnecessarily impact a project owner's residents' time and cost. Commissioners noted several times about their concern regarding precedent for this project. There should be minimal, if any, precedent concerns as subject land would be difficult to replicate in location, proximity, or configuration. From watching the prior hearing, we would like to see our commissioners demonstrate more objective discretion, comprising a higher degree of situational awareness in addition to abiding by laws and regulations and ruling on the project.
Mr. Ward, your time is up.
Okay.
We have the desk item that we've read as well. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ward? Seeing none? Thank you. All right. Mr. Jeans, you have 5 minutes.
I did see a desk item that referred to eucalyptus trees. At the last hearing, that was discussed, and we said we would be planting a grove of 3 redwoods instead of the eucalyptus trees that we plan to remove, and you accepted that, so I'm assuming that that is still okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about the cellar light well now. We have relocated the driveway, which seemed pretty critical to Commissioner Telesfor in relation to saving the trees as much as possible, and I think that was a very good move. We've also relocated the house back. That is at the area of the concrete and riprap culvert. We don't think that's as critical, but we were able to achieve that. What we now learn from talking to staff is that the light well that we're proposing can't be implemented in the way that we'd like to implement it. So what we would like you to consider is allowing us to move the house back to the 15-foot location. Mike Wood, the town consultant, said 10 feet was okay. We put it at 15 feet to be absolutely sure. Because that is not impacting any trees, we think that's a discretion that you have, and it's pretty critical to the homeowner. The way the light well is implemented, or is going to have to be implemented, it's going to be more expensive to the homeowner, and he's already going heavily into budget to put part of the house underground. I know that's not a major concern to you, but it is a concern to him. If you want to question me on the details of that, I can get into it. But what I request is that you find that we have satisfactorily addressed your concerns from the last meeting, that you approve the proposal with minor modification, and that modification would be moving only the house, not the driveway, back 4 feet to allow for a light well design to work that is less impactful and less costly on the homeowner. So if you can do that, we would really appreciate it. We don't want to be denied. We don't want to be sent back for a redesign. So if that's the make or break, we'll take the light well deal as it is, but we really would like to move the house back in that area where the concrete area is, in the swale, and leave the driveway to satisfy the trees and protect them more, which I think was Commissioner's concern at the last hearing. Thank you.
Mr. Jeans, I have a question for you. So within 6 weeks, there's a sudden need for almost 2,000 square feet of an exercise, bonus, and media room. Can you elaborate on how this addresses our original direction from the January hearing? I'm sorry, the December hearing?
Yes, you asked me to reduce the bulk scale and mass of the house. The cellar does not add to it.
I realize that, but your original plan or application that you filed with the town of Los Gatos probably occurred July of 2015, roughly? I'm just wondering why the cellar, a 2,000 square foot cellar, wasn't included at that time or brought forward at our December hearing.
Okay, because when the house was 500 feet bigger, we didn't need the cellar. If you want to go back and approve that last design, we're perfectly happy with it. So, but we felt that there was a concern about the mass of the house. And the cellar is one of the legitimate vehicles that the town allows if you need additional space, because it's invisible, and all it is doing is providing some space that the homeowner needs. They'll put a theater, a gym, a bedroom, a den for the kids. Will go downstairs. They were able to work with 500 feet extra, but they pared down their desire to make that work, because I told them that anything any larger, even though we were 300 or 400 feet under the FAR originally, I said that would still probably push the limits of the Planning Commission. So they said, well, we'll take this out, we'll take that out. When another 500 feet is taken out, they added the cellar, and I think that, you know, that's a legitimate vehicle. Lots of houses do it.
Okay, so when I do my math, the 500 feet from the 2,000, so it resulted in additional 1,500 square feet of hidden space.
I think it's 1,800 feet to some 1,800 or 1,900 of cellar, but yes, it results in additional space. So what they're doing is they're putting back in some of the things that they took out previously, because I told them that you would not approve 4,900 square feet. So they put some back in.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Hudas?
Yeah, I'm just looking for some information. In your opinion, is it normal to have 1,900 or 2,000 square feet of living space on a floor without a bathroom or without plumbing?
We just roughed in the approximate design. I can, excuse me. the detailed layout that we are proposing, and we didn't show on the plans because we didn't have time to put them together, has a bathroom over here and some bedrooms. Has a media room. We might switch something out and put a gym down there, but that is not really relevant to bulk scale and mass. So, and that is not something that you have. That is work that we did after we submitted, because we just knew where structurally we needed the bearing walls to come, and we've fleshed that out a little bit as to how we would make that work. Yes?
So as a follow-up, how many bedrooms will the house have with this current plan?
Well, if
You're
we
showing us
move some of these bedrooms here, then we're going to make one of the rooms upstairs that's currently called out as a bedroom, not a bedroom. So it would have 6, I believe, ultimately. But again, we're fleshing out that area. Some of that may change, and this may become a gym, in which case we would leave a bedroom upstairs. The family and half of the family's outside, but they have the need for at least 5 bedrooms.
All right, Commissioner Hudes?
So just one more follow-up. Is this the plan that you're submitting and asking us to approve, or is it the one that was provided in our packet?
I'm asking you to approve a cellar. I'm not detailing the use of that cellar because it is not relevant at the Planning Commission level, and we did not have time to flesh it out. We still haven't fully fleshed it out. We just know that that is where the cellar will be. It may well be that a gym will go down there.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
On the light wells, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the light wells
Yes.
because I don't really understand that.
Sure.
But secondly, I noticed on that drawing you just took down, are you proposing 3 light wells?
If you don't allow us to move the house closer to the creek, back to its original front line, then we have 3 small light wells. That is based on light requirements and egress requirements. And that is how the building department will probably make us implement it.
So you're saying either 1 larger light well or 3 smaller light wells?
Well, on this line, the setback line is the red line, and the light wells are inside the setback. If we go to the design that we showed you, slightly modified, because all we've done is push the house further so that the light well is no longer in the setback, then we can do a setback with doors where you can actually walk out and you get more light. So if we're inside the setback with the light wells, they are constrained to be the minimum allowable by building code for light and egress. If they're inside the property but not in the setback, then it can be full length.
Just so I understand this, you're saying that if we don't move the house, then you can't put in the larger single well.
Correct.
So then you will put in 3 smaller wells.
Yes.
Those are not required, are they required by law, I guess is what I should
Yes.
ask you. So the law would require 3.
At bedrooms, you need a light well.
And we don't, of course, we don't know yet whether there are bedrooms down there.
No, but that would be something that would be determined when we do construction drawings, and we would have to deal with planning and building at that issue.
Okay.
So
Okay, let me,
that's the way we're going.
let me forget that then.
Right.
I'll get off that. Let me get back to my original point, which just a matter of understanding. I'm looking at at page 3 of the staff report, and among other things, it says the applicant is proposing a single large light well along the rear of the residence that encroaches into the required setback. The town cellar policy permits light wells to encroach into required setbacks if there is a 3-foot minimum clear path of travel around the light well, and the light well is the minimum required by the building code. Now, as proposed, and assuming for the moment you don't move the house, you're saying then it would not meet that policy, is that right?
It would meet the 3 feet around the outside because we have 5 feet, but it wouldn't meet the policy that says inside the setback, the light well size has to be kept to a minimum. So we would go to this approach, which we don't like, but we'll live with, if you don't allow us to push the house back.
And so what you're asking us tonight, because I want to make sure I understand that, is to move what?
Slide the house.
Move the house which way and how many feet?
That one. We would like to move the house 4 feet this way. We will leave the garage in the same place because keeping the garage set there enables us to rotate this and get the separation that was requested to protect these trees better along here. But this is where the concrete swale is, and we're already 15 feet away from that. Originally, in shrinking the house, we went to 19 feet, but then we were told when we submitted that light well is not allowed. So I would like to shift the house back to the 4-foot point so that we can shift that out of the setback.
Okay, if that were done, then what is the distance from the edge of the building
To the creek,
to the creek?
15 feet. And Mike Wood says 10 feet's okay, but
Keys like a...
the concern, I think it was Commissioner Talasfor, was said, can you shift it further away to protect the trees? There are no trees here because this is the concrete section. So this would not impact the trees. We want to do this because we think that helps the trees a lot, and we're very much in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. I think I now understand.
Commissioner Hanson.
So I think I know the answer, but if we were to agree with you to move the house back to the 15-foot setback, there's no change to the square footage that was proposed. It's still going to be the 531 square foot reduction. It's just going to slide, basically.
Yes, it just slides, and there's no change. The intersection here, this jog will go away to that degree because that section will move forward. So the house will move forward, the garage will stay, and the square footages that you're approving will not change, and Marnie will obviously check that.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Jeans.
Thank you.
We will now close the public portion of the hearing and ask if any commissioners have any questions, comments, or a motion. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I'd like to have staff's reaction, if at all, to moving the house by the 4 feet.
I'll defer to Marnie.
Staff doesn't have an opinion necessarily on the 15 versus 19 foot. The commissioner that mentioned wanting to increase that setback from, if possible, from the creek was Joanne Talasfor. I didn't hear any of that from the rest of the commissioners. Doesn't mean none of that wasn't the opinion of the rest of the commission. The report provided by Mike Wood recommended a setback of 15 feet, which would be retained. He said potentially it could be considered at 10 feet. That might still be appropriate, but he recommended a 15-foot setback, not a 10-foot.
At least staff would not oppose that move.
Correct. If the commission were in support of that, staff wouldn't disagree with that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson?
As long as you're up here, can you confirm that because there was several different drawings of the cellar, can you confirm that what was just presented, if the house were moved, that the cellar light well would comply with the town cellar policy? I realize that there would be a condition of approval, and if they presented something else, but based on what you've seen, that revision would bring it into compliance with the cellar policy?
The seller policy only speaks to when it encroaches into the required setback in regards to that limitation. So it would technically comply. We don't always like to see these larger light wells, but they're pretty limited as far as the visual impact, obviously. So
that is the only.
It would comply with
That
the
is the full extent of the seller policy is the light well?
on that issue, yes.
On that issue, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Mosley? Commissioner Hudes?
Are there any concerns about the proximity to the creek during construction? Or are there any measures that are normally taken when you're that close to a riverbed?
So I can jump in, and we also have Parks and Public Works staff. So, of course, we're concerned about construction near a creek. There are erosion control measures that are put into place to ensure that, runoff and debris don't flow into the creek channel or into the storm drain system. And so I don't have the original conditions of approval in front of me, but we could look to Parks and Public Works because that is a standard condition that is placed on those.
Additionally, there will be tree protection fencing. So the tree protection fencing would be placed in accordance to where the trees are. Most likely, the protection fencing is going to be similar to what's currently out there at the edge of the Water District property.
Okay. Any, Commissioner Kane?
Did you meet with the applicant or the applicant's representative after our last meeting?
I did when they resubmitted. I don't recall if we met before that at all, but when he resubmitted, I glanced at the plans and I gave him the initial feedback on the cellar, the light well, sorry. And so
there was a 500-foot approximate reduction from 54 to 4,900 square feet, house and garage. The guidance I'm looking for is, we've gone from really huge to huge, and the language in the guidelines is to be on alert for the largest house in the neighborhood. And we had clear discussions on that at our last meeting, that the issue was largest house in the neighborhood. The issue was a disregard for the protective language that we have. And with the 500-foot reduction, we've gone from 54 to 4,900 square feet. I eyeballed the number of houses that was given to us on the report, and they may come, the average, I could be wrong, but the average is about 3,200. There's one at 1,100, 2,000, 35, 31, 32, 29. There's a 3971, but the eyeball average is about 3,200, and we have an applicant's request for 4,900.
I'm sorry, the public portion of the hearing is closed.
This says house and garage, 4,900. Is that correct?
he's just wanting you to understand that the house is smaller than that, and that the garage on this proposed application is acknowledgeably significantly larger than the
other
others
numbers
in the
I'm
neighborhood.
using are also house and garage.
I understood.
If
And
I
he's
went
just
over
wanting you
to
to understand
house,
that
the analogy would be the same. The house is 4,000. The other houses are 28, 27, 25, 33, 27, 2,000, 24, 24. You get my drift?
I do.
So we're still out there with what may be a challenge to the language regarding largest house in the neighborhood, with or without the garage. And the garage, I'm the garage guy with the three-car garage. I think my statement was I didn't see any. I hope that was my statement. Because I looked, I didn't see any. That clearly they were there on the back streets. And the garage sizes are 475, 600, 600, 473, 541. If you get my drift, again, I'm going to average those guys at about 600 feet. This garage proposed is 885 feet. So again, I go back to the language discouraging a three-car garage, whether or not it's suitable to the neighborhood, that kind of thing. That's what got my attention. is the size of it. I guess the car that's got the garage that has 4 cars has Volkswagens, because that garage got to be smaller than the 885. Fact is, there are 3-car garages in that neighborhood, and I didn't know it. But this is still a humdinger. At 885, it seems to be way beyond the average of 600. That was our concerns in the last meeting, was the size of the whole project. The denominator is the size of the parcel itself, and whether or not that can be made compatible. I will retain my concern regarding protecting the language of largest house in the neighborhood and allowing neighborhoods to be converted. That may not be totally applicable here because the parcel itself is so large. So my original question still stands. Was there any discussion, amelioration, consideration for those concerns that were voiced by the commission at our last meeting?
So the applicant walked through how they believe they had addressed each of the commission's concerns, and staff is ultimately directing it back to you for your decision as far as whether it meets the actual direction that the Planning Commission had, to the extent that they had asked for.
So since you're sending, may I continue?
Of course.
Since you're sending it back to us, I just noted the construction of your conclusion, which was rather gray. The applicant has taken direction from commission and addressed the items. The overall reduction appears to address commission concerns. And then, however, the proposed project would still create not a larger residence, but a significantly larger residence than those in the immediate neighborhood. Marnie, if I may, I got to make a decision on that. How big is the however? How big is the concern that it's not the larger, most large resident, it's significantly most large? If I give that away, can I still protect the town? And why is the however there?
The however, I think, was just merely to state the fact. Clearly, looking at the numbers, it is larger than the largest house by approximately 1,000 square feet. So that is just a fact. And so the commission is free to use its discretion, whether it decides to choose that the lot size, in this case, as you had mentioned, being significantly larger. I'm not sure if you did an average lot size. I haven't done one, but looking at that, it probably averages double this lot size compared to what else is out there.
Yes, it does.
And so the commission does have the discretion to use that in their decision-making this evening on this application. The alternative is if you still have concerns and think it's the largest, then you can also, you have the discretion to take an action to that effect as well.
And in the kind of reduce it further?
That's always an option if the commission chooses that or determines that that's the appropriate action.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I'm going to make a motion, but before I make the motion, I just want to say that I understand Commissioner Kane's concern and also the fairness of his question, and I personally believe the size of the lot and the uniqueness of this lot really would allow the larger proposed site. So, but that's simply my take on this. And I think he's wrestling with whether that's adequate, so we'll find out in a minute. But my motion would be, and my motion will include that the house be moved the requested 4 feet as requested. That being the case, we would find that the project is categorically exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act. For the reasons set forth in Exhibit 2, we would make the findings as required in Section 2910-09030E of the Town Code for granting the approval of a demolition of a single-family residence, make the findings that the project complies with the residential guidelines, make the required considerations as required by Section 2920-150 of the Town Code for granting approval of an architecture and site application, and approve the architecture and site application S15063 with the conditions contained in Exhibit 3 and the development plans attached as Exhibit 16. So that would be the motion.
Commissioner Hanson?
I would second the motion as long as you would add the condition that the seller must, that the seller must comply with the town's seller policy, as suggested by our staff.
I would be happy to do that.
All right, so I second the motion.
Discussion? Commissioner Erickson?
So a question of the staff, whoever the right staff person around here, we've got a lot of them here tonight. So if I understood what they were proposing to do, and I apologize for not asking this when Mr. Jeans was up there, is that the house, it would be moved 4 feet, but not the garage. So in the staff's opinion, so you've got an attached garage. So in the staff's opinion, can they do an effective redesign of the project without, and still without raising any concerns? So we're essentially approving a project which we have a set of plans, and that set of plans is now, I mean, if I look at the plans, I'm not an architect, but if I look at the plans, there will have to be interior, no small amount of interior, it appears to me, redesign of the space where the garage and the house are attached. So does that amount of redesign, should that cause concern for us? And would it cause enough concern for us to want to continue this item to see the final set of plans?
Staff is comfortable working with the applicant to address the interior configuration. We don't usually get involved or too nailed down on the interior configuration at this stage. It's a good reference point to understand where the windows are and everything like that. But a lot of times the walls will shift a little bit between this stage and when they actually develop the construction drawings. The one item that staff will pay particularly close attention to is how the roof forms are going to adjust as a result of that. But staff can work with the applicant on that. One thing I do want to add to the discussion, though, is that we don't need the condition regarding the light wells if we're moving the house 4 feet over. So that's not necessarily needed if that is part of the motion.
Well,
Commissioner O'Donnell?
just 1 second. I don't know if Commissioner Erickson is through. I just wanted to ask the seconder if she would agree with me that we would remove that condition that is no longer necessary concerning the light wells.
If it's not necessary, given the movement of the house, then I would remove that
Great.
from the proposed motion.
I will add my comments at this time. I'm troubled. I won't be supporting the motion. I'm troubled with 6,803 square feet of house, garage, and cellar, when the next largest house, a garage, is 3,971 square feet. So the issue of being significantly larger has morphed into an intensification issue. And this is contrary to our general plan, LU-6.5, that the intensity of use shall be consistent with that of the immediate neighborhood. So I will call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Commissioner Hudes, Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Badami opposed. It is a tie. It fails. Would a commissioner like to try another motion?
Let me just ask something. To the extent that any of the people who do not support the motion could support a motion were it amended, I would agree with the chair, but it might be well to consider that now.
Are any of the commissioners interested in amending the motion? Seeing none. I will refer to the town attorney at this point for guidance.
So there's two ways we could go about this, and that's up to the commission on what they want. They might have reopen the public hearing if you want to ask the applicant there. But a 3-3 is a fail, and it's a denial of the project, which could then be appealed to the council. Or the commission could continue this item to a date certain because there is one commissioner missing that would then be able to vote on this item. So that's up to your discretion, and like I said, you could reopen and ask the applicant if they'd rather just have the denial, which would be appealable to the council, or whether a continuance for the 7th member to be here to participate, if that's your desire.
Commissioner Hanson?
I just had a question for my fellow commissioners, because with all this stuff, the specific direction seems to be the issue. So when there's this big of a discrepancy, and there's also the issue of the lot size being so much larger than any of the other lots, I guess the fundamental question is, what size would make the commissioners comfortable? Does it need to be no bigger than the biggest house in the neighborhood, or 10% bigger is okay? Or, so that, I don't know where my fellow commissioners that voted no stand on that, because I think that would be the next step to determine where it needed to be.
Commissioner Kane, do you have a comment?
I'm looking at the numbers, and, I am loath to give numbers. One commissioner gave numbers last time, and that's the number that was hit. I'd be comfortable saying, try and adhere to the residential design guidelines. That's the only reason we're up here. I don't want to rewrite the standards and guidelines. I don't want to rewrite the town code. Town council does that. And I simply apply what's in front of us, what they've given to us to apply. But I meant what I said earlier about, and Commissioner O'Donnell's picked up on this, the lot size itself is huge. And I guess when I worry about precedent, it would be, the town attorney be quick to say, well, each case is handled on an individual basis. But the irony is, when we talk about a 3-car garage, we talk about 12 others in the neighborhood. So that sounds like a precedent too, and I'm always concerned about that. But I think if we had particulars like the lot size we have here, if we saw another house like this with that kind of a lot size, and the house was closer to, but yet still above, the largest house in the neighborhood, which in this case is 33. I'd feel more comfortable about approving that without worrying too much about the future. Did someone else have a comment along those lines?
Commissioner Erickson had his hand up first.
So I think we would need to be careful not to confuse compatibility and precedent. So the 3-car garage issue for me is a compatibility issue. Precedent is not synonymous with compatibility. So we could make judgments about compatibility that are not making and make another judgment, not saying we should or we shouldn't, but we could make a judgment with a particular size of a lot that we would consider it a reasonable discretionary decision of the council, and it wouldn't be precedent setting, but that we decided that there were 3-car garages were compatible is a compatibility issue, not a precedent issue.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudes?
So I'm going to make it a little different direction. I actually did not have a problem with the size of the house given the size of the lot. I think, and particularly looking at the siting of the house all the way back, I didn't think it would present an issue to the spirit of the guidelines. The issue that I have is that I don't think the direction about separation between the project and the bank has really been taken into account. And so solving the light well issue by putting that close to the bank, and I looked at the bank very closely from the other side. It's, there's part of it where there's concrete, and then there's part where there's some kind of retaining material that's crumbling, and then there's parts that's real riverbank, and it's a real treasure to have a creek like that in town. It's right at the seam of the mountains in the valley, and I think that that was wise direction to provide separation, adequate separation. So resolving the issue of the light well by just sliding the house over, I don't know if that's the only solution, but that's what made me uncomfortable with supporting the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell?
If if that comment means, and I really it's just a question, that if we didn't move the house 4 feet, if that would make the commissioner more comfortable, we could revisit this motion. But if there's something else or needs more consideration in a different way, then I wouldn't do that. So I guess I'm just asking you whether putting the house back where it was before I talked about the 4 feet would give you the comfort that you reasonably are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had as much time as all of you to really understand this project, but in the small amount of time that I have had, that is the issue that I think would prevent me from supporting it.
Because I will tell you, of course, right away, that if that's the case, and I make the same motion and I delete from that motion the movement of the house, it would appear that we would then have the motion, we would no longer be stalemated, we'd have a successful motion. And that, after I allow the chair to say whatever the chair wants to say.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I would make that motion.
All right, if you would like to go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, I've already made a motion. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing, but what I'm going to do is withdraw from that motion, moving the house 4 feet. So it would be identical to what I had said before, including the deletion that was pointed out to us. And if the seconder of the motion will second that, we would then have the same motion minus, however, the movement. So now the house would be 19 feet from the bank rather than 15 feet. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Hanson?
I second the motion.
All right, I will call the question. All in favor? 4 opposed. Commissioner Kane and Commissioner Badami opposed. Motion passes. Mr. Paulson, are there appeal rights of the actions of the commission on this item?
There are appeal rights. Anyone who's not satisfied with the decision of the Planning Commission can appeal that decision to the Town Council. The forms are available in the clerk's office. There is a fee for filing the appeal, and the appeal must be filed within 10 days.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to our new public hearing, which is item number 3, 15975 Union Avenue, subdivision application M-15-001, architecture and site applications S-15-009 through S-15-011. Requesting approval to demolish an existing single-family residence, subdivide one lot into 3 lots, construct 3 new single-family residences, and remove large protected trees on properties owned R-110, APN 523-42-017. May I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the site? Are there any disclosures from commissioners? Commissioner Kane?
While visiting the site, I had incidental contact with a number of the neighbors, 3 or 4.
Thank you. Ms. Walters, can you provide us with a staff report this evening?
Yes, hello, good evening, Planning Commissioners. This site is located at the northwest corner of Union and Blossom Hill Road. The site slopes downward and sits below Blossom Hill Road in some areas. The existing 4,300 square feet lot contains a single-family dwelling, and the site is zoned R110. The applicant's proposing to subdivide the one lot into 3 different lots. At the August 2014 CDAC meeting, the site access off a Union was preferred to the subject site. All 3 lots would be accessed from a shared driveway off of Union Avenue. The CC&Rs will require that the shared driveway and the garage apron for Lot 3 must remain clear and free for fire access and turnaround. The project includes a required right-of-way dedication for Union Avenue and Blossom Hill Road. Public improvements also include curb, gutter, sidewalks on Union and Blossom Hill, traffic signal relocation, upgrading traffic signals, and pedestrian crossing improvements. The desk item tonight provides you with a conceptual layout of the off-site improvements. The applicant proposes to construct 3 single-family homes with attached 3-car garages. Each home has a different architecture style, and colors and materials boards are located behind you, as well as attached in Exhibit 4 of the staff report. The project was reviewed by the Development Review Committee last August, and neighbors raised several concerns regarding building structure height as well as site drainage. The applicant has redesigned the project to capture the site's water all on-site in 3 bioretention ponds, 1 on each lot. Water from individual sites is then and also directed around the homes and into a bioretention pond and swale along Union Avenue. The town's architectural consultant found that the proposed building's mass was in keeping with the surrounding properties. However, the applicant has since revised the plans to lower the building height, trying to address neighbors' concerns. The project is being forwarded to the Planning Commission because neighbors have concerns that could not be resolved. This includes building mass, shadows, enforcement of no parking on the shared driveway and Lot 3's driveway for fire access and turnaround, maintenance of the storm water site design measures, and off-site improvements along Union Avenue. The applicant has met with the neighbors to discuss the project and concerns and revisions, and this concludes staff's report. Both planning and Public Works is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. Commissioner Kane has a question for you.
Do you know if the power is still on to the house?
That's a great question. I don't know that.
Then I would ask staff to make a note that the electrical panel box is wide open. There are wires hanging out, some of which are cut. And that's, a vacant house would be a great place for a kid to play. But the open electrical panel could be a bummer, so maybe we should pull a switch on that. You mentioned fire access and turnaround twice. Help me with that. Let's see. What are you saying? Can a fire truck turn around or it can't?
Sure. So working with the fire department and the applicant, the shared driveway allows fire access all the way down. In order to have fire access, no cars can be parked on that street. So it would be red striped, and in the CCNRs, it would have to condition that would not allow parking on that shared driveway. In addition, to have the turnaround maneuver, in order to turn around, that would be utilizing the driveway apron in Lot 3, and that, in addition, would not be allowed to have surface parking.
So the driveway in Lot 3 is big enough for a fire engine to turn around?
Yes, to make a...
Okay. And, yes, there's no
Yes.
problem with that big old thing turning around on it?
Yes.
You mentioned the height was recently reduced. Now, what does recent mean? Do I have the reduction in height, or was there a subsequent reduction in height?
You do have the most recent and the most current drawings with regards to the height reduction, and they also moved the buildings over a bit to decrease the shadow impacts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Erickson?
So I've been trying to understand the driveway, the parking, and all that kind of stuff. And I've read back through the town code and all that kind of stuff. And I think what I'm prone to do sometimes, I think I've overthought this. So I guess it would be helpful to me if you could review exactly what the parking requirements are and how and the access requirements are and how they're being applied and how all of this meets the town requirements, so that I can get out of my funk of overthinking this.
Okay. The shared driveway is wide enough for our required for driveways meeting 3 homes, residents, as well as meeting fire requirements, as long as we maintain that there's no parking on the shared driveway. Each single-family home is required by town code to provide 2 spaces. So that can be covered or uncovered. The code does not specify that. In this proposal, each home provides 3 covered garages. They provide garages. In Lot 1, you can see that they do not have a driveway apron to park in. In that case, they've chose to add additional 2 parking spaces that are to the right of the garage. So for Lot 1, there's 3 covered parking spaces and 2 uncovered. For Lot 2, there are 3 covered with the garage and then driveway parking. And then Lot 3 would be the 3 covered garage spaces. Again, they're only required to provide 2 spaces.
Commissioner Erickson, go ahead.
So the 2 off-site parking spaces that are essentially inside of Lot 1 are not required?
No.
Is that correct? Okay, got it.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
what you just described presupposes that people will not park. It isn't clear to me. The driveway is big enough, and it must be kept open. On the other hand, I think you just told us also that people could park on the driveway. So, which is it?
Sure, so I described in Lot 3, Lot 1, there is no driveway. It's just a straight 3-car garage and then 2 surface spaces. Lot 2 does have a driveway and 3-car garage. They can park in their driveway as well as their garage. Lot 3, though, would have to be included in the CC&R in a deed restriction that would state they are unable to park, they cannot park in their driveway. That would have to be free and clear.
There'll be nobody to enforce that, so that if the fire department has to come down that path and somebody's parked there, it might slow them down.
That's correct, and I've talked with the fire department at length about this, and the CC&Rs would be between the property owners, and they would have to regulate it. It is a shared driveway, it's not a public road, so PD would not respond or do towing of any sort. So it would have to be regulated by the property owners themselves.
Well, are these condominiums or townhouses, or are they rentals? What are they?
They're single-family homes.
Okay, so when you say somebody's going to have to enforce this, you've got 3 different owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy at the first lot is hardly impacted at all. The person at the third lot is a turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the only one of the 3 houses that can't park in his own driveway.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Commissioner Hanson?
I had a couple of questions, sort of along the same line of what Commissioner Erickson said. I went through, because there are so many different discussions with the neighbors and different times of the CDAC versus the Development Review Committee. I wrote down the concerns that were still left, because I wasn't sure myself what was still left and what was most important. So in the case of building mass, as far as I could tell, the staff report indicated that the houses are in compliance with the residential design guidelines and our building code. But some of the neighbors thought maybe that you could look into their house. But then it was mentioned in the staff report that it was far enough away that it, in staff's opinion, shouldn't be an issue. Those words weren't said, but
That's
so
correct.
so then, to me, I don't know, is building mass really still an issue in your opinion?
From staff's opinion, it's not. We feel that the applicant has reduced the height of the building, and it's with its setback, as well as vegetative screening and the way that homes are oriented. We feel that it meets this standards, our residential design guidelines. However, we still have received letters from neighbors who have concerns.
And then the shadows, I saw that there would be some shadows at certain times of the day during the winter, which is, I presume, the time that the study was done, and I didn't see any possible resolution for that. Is there a resolution for that that the applicant could make, or is it just a case of build or not build?
So our code requires that we look at 2 different times of year for shadow studies. One is summer solstice and winter solstice, and 3 different times during the day. So the attachment for the shadow study illustrates that, of course, in the winter months, the sun is lowest and it casts a longer shadow. The applicants looked at, that's why one of the reasons the applicant shifted the buildings to move the shadow farther away from the rear neighbors' backyards. So they attempted to do so. And this doesn't also take into account existing trees that are also there on site.
Okay, so in your opinion, the shadow issue is addressed as much as possible, from the applicant's standpoint?
Staff feels that the applicants made an effort to modify that, and based on the site planning, they've done their best.
Okay, and the driveway, I think you just kind of went through that, and I think that was the major issue, the driveway, and related to the fire access. Then I had a couple of questions from my own vantage point. The thing that struck me the most about this is kind of where it is relative to Union, and I think we all know that that's a crazy busy intersection, and they're right there at the intersection, and the majority of the traffic issue is coming south on Union, and it would be right in front of their driveway, and it gets backed up, as much as half of a mile a lot of weeknights. And so I saw that there's a plan for some improvements in But I thought there was already a right turn lane versus a left, or we can't really go straight through that intersection. But I thought the lanes were already kind of divided. Maybe there's someone that did the plan for the traffic improvements, but it wasn't clear to me what was going to change really from where it was today, except for that there was a small portion of a bike lane put in there. So maybe I just missed something.
Sure, so if I could, I'd like to defer to our traffic team to talk about that. Is that okay?
That's fine. And then,
Should I do it now?
Commissioner Hanson, I'm going to recommend that we wait to ask a lot of these questions until the applicant has had a chance to come up and give his presentation, because we have a lot of speakers, and some of this could be discussed during our discussion period.
that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now open the public portion of the public hearing and allow the applicant and their team 10 minutes to address the commission. Mr. Kolstad and his team.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for letting us get in front of you tonight. My name's Tim Cronin. I represent the Union Avenue Betchart Partnership. We are DNC Development, Kearney Construction Consulting, Inc. We've been building in this area for a long, long time, probably have 60 to 80 years worth of experience. Most recently, we've been building these types of projects, infill little projects like this, from Redwood City to Almaden. We have projects going now in Los Altos, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, many others. Our group has worked closely since July, August of 2014 and staff, both planning and engineering, have worked with us to help us with the neighbors' concerns. We've met regularly with the neighbors as much as we can. We've listened to all their feedback, talked to staff about it, and to have it be a viable project and make sense, we've come up with the plan we now have today. We build high-quality stuff all over. We build custom homes in the Los Altos Hills and all over the place. We'll do the right thing by the town of Los Gatos and provide a quality project. By the way, the power is off.
Thank you.
The power was cut from PG&E a long time ago, so there's no risk there. We've worked with the neighborhood and done as much as we can to mitigate some of their concerns. With that said, I'll turn it over to Gary and let him give you more detail unless you have some questions for me. Oh, yeah, the Union Avenue situation, the traffic plan does add another lane. So it widens it so that left-hand, right-hand turn situation will not be a problem. There's actually 25 feet of Union Avenue from our property being dedicated to Union Avenue, plus a 3-foot sidewalk. On the Blossom Hill side, there's 15 feet dedicated to the city. And this project is, through the conditions of approval, has to improve that whole perimeter with curb gutter sidewalk, two parking spaces, in the front, extra parking spaces, and whether there could be more additional parking along Blossom Hill Road, that would be up to staff and everybody to talk about. Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Gary Kolstad, architect. I wanted to address the home design and our whole concept, but I did want to add one point that Tim has assured me time and time again that this shared driveway agreement program that they use has worked successfully on several of their projects. And so that we wouldn't be, at this point, with this project without tremendous amount of history and success with this system. We had originally asked for a flag lot, a modified flag lot, because and that was denied at CDAC, or not denied, but suggested that we don't do that. So we didn't go that tack. But I'm sure we can answer more questions about that and have more discussions about that. That seems like a hot topic for you guys. As far as the architecture goes, the first thing I always do when I walk the property is walk the neighborhood, because I know how important it is to be compatible. Our project needs to be compatible with what's adjacent to it and around it. And it's pretty clear that there are several subdivisions that are very, very similar to what we're presenting today. So we're in that pattern. The mass, the scale and size of everything. There's many three-car garages. We don't care for the architecture, no offense. I know you guys didn't design it. We're not mimicking the architecture, but we're using that as a basis for what we're presenting today. Obviously, this is a very important corner. We've acknowledged that. We are not going to do architecture that wouldn't be relevant to and representative of Los Gatos. So that's important for us to do these nice designs. Also, it was real refreshing when I first met with the ownership group. They weren't interested in pushing the limits that on FARs, on setbacks, on the heights, and even the lot sizes are greater than they need to be. So that's something that I think is important to remember through this whole project. The three different styles that we have are, they're different, but they're complementary to each other. They all represent a piece of Los Gatos. Lot 1 is oriented to Union and the corner. So you're not seeing the side of the house, you're seeing the front of the house at the most exposed part of the house on the lot. And then lots 2 and 3 are oriented to the north, which is the official rear yard, but we flipped everything around to be creative and to make this project work, so we have our access off of Union. Access off of Blossom Hill is not going to work. It's just, we've all looked at that several times, because we have to raise up the road. We dedicate 15 feet. We have to raise up that road. Now you can't just drive down that slope. Now you've raised it up 6 or 8 feet. So it makes it even worse than it is if it would be just coming off the road today. It also, and we've been trying to explain this to the neighbors, we orient the back of our homes towards the south, towards the sunlight, which is more enjoyable for outdoor entertaining. But all of that activity and noise and action is away from the neighbors to the north. And I think that we did that on purpose. And I think having these homes just with the garages in the front is the least impact to the neighbors to the north. And as we said before, all these homes feature 3-car garages, which keep parking off the streets. They are under the cap for the FAR. They all exceed the minimum setbacks. And they all are well within the 30-foot height limit. And let's see. We have prepared a couple slides here. They're not super clear, but the idea is to illustrate how tall these homes are. This is lot 1, and you can see just a sliver of the roof. Right there, I'll take the mic next time. That's lot 1, lot 2, and this, what we've done is created a glass ceiling at 25 feet above grade. Our maximum height limit is 30 feet. So this is how much of the home sticks up above just the 25-foot height limit, like you would for a hillside. And this is for lot 3. All of these homes are planned with newer standards, 10-foot high ceilings in the first floor, and 9 to 10-foot high ceilings in the second floor. We need to have these 10-foot ceilings We want to have these 10-foot ceilings for resale. That's important to have this newer standard, but also because of our system that we have to use for this particular project is we're not using conventional raised floors. There's so much moisture in the ground that would be a disaster. We'd have too much moisture underneath the house. So we're going with a concrete floor, and that allows us to drop that floor between 16 and 20 inches from a standard conventional raised floor. So we've lowered the house just by that construction method 18 inches from your normal house. But the one drawback is we have to heat and cool up above. We can't heat and cool from underneath the slab. We have to come in and drop in between the second floor and come in and heat and cool through that. So we have a lot of soffits, and those would be between 9 and 8 foot high. So it's not like we have these massive tall ceilings throughout this house. This last slide shows the sitting, how we set the 3 pads in relationship to the existing grade. And you can see probably 50% or more of each house pad is submerged in the existing grade, except for Lot 2, and that's because the existing house is there. It's already been graded.
Thank you, Mr. Colsack. Are there any questions for Mr. Colsack? Commissioner Hanson?
I had a question. I saw the plan was to remove all of the trees on the site. And since I drive down that street almost every day, I didn't even know there's a house there until I looked at this from a planning commissioner perspective. So I was just having this imagination where I didn't notice the area because of all the trees, and now there's not going to be any. And I see there's a plan to put some kinds of plants and a fence there. Could you walk me through what I'm going to be looking at? And then there's also maybe parking where I've never seen anyone park on Blossom Hill. So just tell me what I'm going to be seeing when I drive down Blossom Hill.
Okay, I'll do my best. And first of all, these trees, the majority of them are not in the greatest of shape. The owner did not take very good care of these trees. And ironically, of the 67, I think, that were identified in the staff report as protected trees, 45 of them are along the easements, the dedications that we're giving back to the town, along Blossom Hill and Union. So that's 2/3 of the protected trees are actually in what's now going to be town property. So the town is actually removing the trees. No. There's a couple trees that look pretty significant within the site. There's a giant redwood that's right there on Union that we attempted to save, but heroics would have been for naught because the tree is not that good of a shape, and the minimal stress that we put on from the sidewalks and the house and all that stuff would have damaged that tree. All the other trees fell right where the subdivision lines were, and the town arborist supported our arborist report to say that, these trees are not really worth saving. We can start over now. We can plant trees that are more appropriate not that the oaks are not appropriate, but the oaks are lining the road. So what you're going to see is these 3 homes with trees that are, we've had to up the size a little bit so you're going to have more mature trees from the beginning, the 36-inch box trees along the front. You're going to see light and air, but you're also going to see what you see along that road anyway, and you see fences. And we're going to continue that pattern. So this is all about continuing the pattern to be compatible with this. So it's going to look more uniform than kind of this one little forest thing, and then everything else is straight. And, along Blossom Hill, we get 9 extra parking spaces, and we get 3 to 4 parking spaces on Union. So those are all probably going to be used up by the neighbors and maybe Hillbrook School bus, I don't know.
So thank you for that. And we see many proposals for development where a lot of the trees can't be saved. So and we rely on the consulting arborist to make their call, and so that's fine. I think what you said was you're going to put a fence at the south end of the property along Blossom Hill, and in front of it will be these parking spots, that you're giving, that space that you're giving back to the town as you're going, looking, coming towards Blossom Hill. And then the trees that you're going to replanting or vegetation's going to be inside or outside of the fence?
Yeah, the trees will be, there's no plan for any street trees that I know of from Los Gatos, from the town, but we will be planting within our property significantly, all over.
Okay.
On all the perimeters, yes.
And I think what your conclusion was that it's going to look much neater and cleaner and have better conditioned trees than are there today. Is that correct?
Well, that's for sure. You're also going to be able to, much better merge lane onto Blossom Hill. And what I've been told by town engineering is that there's really no plan of widening Blossom Hill to 3 or 4 lanes at that point. It's going to stay 2 forever. So this will allow that extra parking and width for the merge and also for safety and the sidewalk. Now you'll be able to walk that sidewalk all the way around.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to picking up and improving all of the street drainage.
All right, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Couple of questions. You indicated a grade differential when the improvements are made along Blossom Hill. I didn't quite understand that, so I'll come back to that in a minute. I would like you to explain to me if there is a grade difference between where Blossom Hill is going to be on this property, because you also said it was not possible, I think you said that, to access, I guess it'd be lot 1 and 2 from Blossom Hill. I'm not sure you said it was impossible, but it wasn't a good idea. So I want to ask you about that. And then the third thing, it's all on the same idea, is what you've done then is you've had access coming in on the far side and running down the lots. And as an example that it works, is it's been done before. I'm wondering how many times you've had a fire truck have to reach a house at the end of that driveway. So we'll get to that one at a time. Is there a grade differential because of what you're doing between the edge of your property and Blossom Hill?
I think I would direct you to page A 4.4.
A 4.4?
Yeah, it's in the back, towards the back. One of the last pages.
3.6.
Exhibit 14, I believe, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Okay, thank you. Got it. 4. Exhibit, what number again?
4.4, A 4.4.
Almost the last page of Exhibit 14.
And we also have it up on the screen. Thank you, Aaron.
I've got it, thank you.
We have these site sections here, Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3. And if you look at Lot 2, for example, it's kind of cut off, but right here, you can see the dashed line.
Yes.
That's the existing grade. You see this hard line that's horizontal? That'll be fill for the roadway and the sidewalk. So we have to retain all that. And then we've terraced it down to our rear yard.
And the elevation differential between the top straight line and the building platform?
Down here.
Yeah.
That's between 10 and 12 feet.
And you're going to have a fence along that line so people don't fall?
We'll
down
have a
10
fence right there, right inside of our property line. There'll be a redwood fence. The people walking on the sidewalk need at least a minimum guardrail, which would be 42 inches. Everyone else up and down that part of the road has redwood fences. And so we're continuing that pattern.
So, but the fences then are not merely like a normal fence, but these are prevent people from falling down 10 feet. You've
Well,
got
it's a regular neighborhood type fence.
Well, I guess maybe I'm confused. The straight line where I take to be the elevation of Blossom Hill is 10 feet higher than the building pad.
Correct.
So if somebody's walking along the sidewalk and there's no fence and they fall to the right, for example, they go down 10 feet.
That's correct.
So the fence will prevent that.
It will.
Now, when you go to Lot 1 and you want to access, not Blossom Hill, but I'm doing a senior moment, Union, that's on grade then.
Yes, it's actually, there's a little bit of a grade difference that we have to make up, but it's essentially, like right now, you drive right onto that property.
So that's why you say it's, the only access you can have of these three properties has to come in on Union.
That's correct.
And the three homes will be owned individually, and I don't know whether it'd be a homeowners association. Who regulates the roadway to keep it clear?
It's a shared maintenance agreement between the three property owners.
And so somebody or some group is supposed to make sure people don't park in the driveway, in the access street, access road.
That's correct.
Why would they do that?
Why would they not do that?
Well, if you're one, it's not really a problem, is it?
Yeah.
If you're three, it's a big problem. Also, the turnaround takes away some of the parking of three, right?
It takes away the driveway parking, but we have the three-car parking
Right,
garage.
the other two properties have driveway parking.
Correct.
Have you designed something like this before, you personally?
No, I haven't. But I see, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Kane.
One quick question. The red lines on the curb, are they on both sides?
Yes, they are.
All right. I've got more, but that's the first one I wanted to know. That's going to be interesting, good neighbor policy. Get your car out of the driveway.
Yeah, we all are hoping that this is going to be one of those small communities where the neighbors are friends and they get along and they watch each other's back.
So teenagers are
Much like the
prohibited.
neighbors, much like the street behind
Did you hear?
us.
So teenagers are prohibited. Thank you.
Mine are, for sure, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Colsat. I am now going to invite comments from members of the public. And I am going to start with the first speaker card, calling Joni Gimlin to the podium. I'm sorry. Gideon Gimlin. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gideon Gimlin. I reside in the adjacent property number 1, which is 100 Los Swain Court, which is immediately to the north of Lot 1. Main focus of my, let me take this off, okay. The main focus of my concern here is we've been living in this house immediately adjacent to Union Avenue, southbound, for 28 years. And the roadway adjacent to us has always been a parking area, and there's a physical fence. I don't have a drawing here, but I think some of the commissioners have visited the site, and there's a physical white fence in the roadway before the area is dedicated to the town, in the area that's still owned by the lot, that prevents cars from zooming through and making a right turn onto Blossom Hill Road. And my understanding is that the plans call for dedicating that area to the town and tearing down that physical fence, meaning that cars heading southbound, and as mentioned numerous times here today, right after around 3 p.m. till about 7 or 8 at night, there's a nonstop line of traffic trying to get through there. Some cars trying to make a left turn, some trying to make a right turn. If that area is opened up, it's going to become a raceway for people trying to make a right turn onto Blossom Hill Road, and it will severely impact our way of living, because suddenly we're going to have a new road of traffic zooming by our bedroom window, which is right adjacent to Union Avenue, not only having traffic, but unfortunately some drivers like to blast their radios. They do now, but now they're going to be whatever, 10, 15 feet closer to our house, and motorcycles and cement diesel trucks and whatever. And so my main plea here is that physical fence remain there to block traffic from zooming through and using that as a raceway to make a right turn onto Blossom Hill Road. And additionally, if they're going to have a driveway where they're going to have to try to pull out, the new neighbors are going to have to try to pull out onto Union Avenue, if there are cars racing right there, they're never going to get out safely. So it would be to their safety to continue to have that fence there so that they don't collide with cars and they can pull out a little bit and at least take a look before they make a turn. So for that issue, my time's up. Okay.
Oh, no, you have 30 seconds left. Yeah, it's just a
30
yellow line.
seconds left about what? The shared fence? What? My wife is upset about, we don't want to have a shared fence. We want them to be responsible for the fence. They're not going to put it on our property. What else? Lights from the driveway. Also, no neighbors across the street. We've had a rock and roll band there in the driveway and a drug house and all that. So having a driveway facing you, a garage facing you is no panacea, especially if the neighbor has kids with rock and roll band.
Mr. Gimlin, stay put. We might have questions for you. Commissioner Erickson.
So back to your concern about extending the second lane, which precedes the fence. So there are 2 lanes further back on Union at that point in time. So if one were to assume the amount of traffic going on Union is not a function of whether or not there are 2 lanes at the intersection of Blossom Hill and Union, or 1 lane at the intersection, so the volume of traffic is a function of whatever it's a function of. I mean, it's why people are driving that direction.
Can I intercede?
No, just hold on. So the volume of traffic isn't dictated by whether there's 1 or 2 lanes there. So why would putting 2 lanes there not cause less backup at that intersection rather than 1 lane being there, which there is now, so that those people that could turn right won't have to wait in line, and so therefore why wouldn't it cause less congestion, less backup adjacent to your home? I'm not following the logic that you're using.
Am I talking? Yeah, good question, and I'll answer it right away. After 3 o'clock, I have something to point to. So there's a school up Alta Vista, up the road, a little further north on Union Avenue, and starting around 3 o'clock, there's massive traffic. Let me get my hand out of the way there. But there's massive traffic heading southbound on Union, and even when I try to go home southbound on Union, I don't want to drive there because of the backup. If we increase the amount of volume of traffic and flow, that'll encourage more people to come down Union, because now it's, they got that nice raceway to make the right turn into the Blossom Hill Road. It won't lessen the traffic, it'll increase the traffic. As you know, when you open up a highway and you provide more lanes, they always fill up. And so this is just going to fill up the road even more with more traffic rather than less. And additionally, as I said, the main impact, because we are the house immediately adjacent to Union, we're going to get hit with the smoke, with the noise, car accidents, whatever. And of course, there'll be a loss of parking because it'll be dangerous to park there with all that traffic racing by.
Does that answer your question?
He expressed an opinion about the question.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions for Mr. Gimlin, so I'll be calling the next speaker. We have Joni Gimlin stepping up to the podium, and you're allowed 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Joni, same house, the wife. I'd like to discuss the traffic also on Union Avenue as one problem. Originally, according to the builder, there was going to be arrows to go away from our house before they make a right turn. They were planning on having parking on the side of Union Avenue and then having a green bike lane. And that would make it more of a distance for the cars to be a little bit away from our bedroom window, so we wouldn't have to hear all the noise on Union Avenue if they would have that green bike lane with the parking on Union Avenue. Instead of going directly next to our house on Union Avenue, and if no one's parking there, they're just going to go right there anyway and make a sharp right. So it would be helpful if we could have a bike lane and parking on Union Avenue to prevent that from happening. The other thing is, on the first house, the garage, the other homes, the garage doesn't face the backyard to the homes, it's to the side. But on lot one, the garage faces our backyard. So the opening and closing of the garage, we're worried about the lights going into our yard. So I know they proposed a 6-foot fence, but we would like to propose at least a 7-foot fence and some way to keep the lights out of our backyard every time that the garage opens and closes. And I'm not exactly sure how they're going to pull in because they're going into this one driveway, and then they have to make a sharp turn into the garage in lot one, because it just goes straight. They'd have to make a complete 90-degree turn into the garage, where the others have some leeway to get into the garage. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work either. And again, the fence that will separate our home from their homes from this driveway, we don't want to be responsible for it. We want it to be said in the deed with their homes that the homeowners be responsible for the fence that they're going to build. Because are they going to keep the upkeep of this fence? It's really not going to be right near their house. It's going to be a roadway fence. So that's pretty much what I want to say.
30 seconds.
I don't know. That's it, I guess.
Okay. Commissioner Kane has a question for you.
Okay.
Mrs. Gimlin, if I understand, you're asking for a bike lane, and a right-hand turn lane as they approach Blossom Hill?
On this, well, it's hard for me to imagine this, but it was supposed to be, we have parking on the side of our house right now, and they were originally going to have a bike lane there. I guess if you're taking the wall off to make it a bike lane going around to Blossom Hill Road, but I'd be happy if you just have it towards our house so that it prevents people from going near our window. And there is a light there, so people, when it's not green, are going to stop and go, and it's going to be very loud. The window, my bedroom window is right there. I have unusual working hours. I really need to sleep, and I don't want to hear horns blowing, and so this little buffer really helps.
Thank you. Ms. Walters, could you put the right-hand turn diagram back up? The diagram we had up as you approach the mic, I'm thinking it indicates what you're asking for. The right-hand turn lane, the bike lane in the middle, and the one lane for making the left turn. And they're giving away a chunk of property for that right-hand turn lane, for the bike lane, neither which currently exist, as well as room for parking. It doesn't extend down to your house, but just along the side of their house, and a sidewalk.
So what I'm suggesting is by my house, we have the parking there now, but to put the bike lane after the parking, because otherwise people are going to, I guess I'm going to have to go up here. People are just going to go straight near here to make this turn. And if I have a buffer of a bike lane, so they'll be at least further away before they go into the turn lane to make the turn, instead of right next to my house on Union Avenue.
All right. Come back to the podium. Let me ask staff, where's that bike lane going to start? Do we know?
You'll have the opportunity to talk to engineering staff who are here who can answer that question.
Okay. Well, I'll save that question because it may help address some of your concerns.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't know if town would allow one, if safety indicates there could be one, but what about a traffic control device like a speed bump? Say right about by your bedroom window. Do you think that would help? If they hit it going fast, you'd never know because they just go straight up.
My husband says no.
All right. You hear the bumps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. I'll be calling the next speaker, which is Amanda Wilson. You're part of the team? Okay. All right, next speaker, Jan Murray.
Hi, I'm Jan Murray. This is my computer. We live at 104.
Bring the mic down
Yes,
a
speak
bit.
into the microphone. You might want to bring it closer. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, start my timer over. I planned for 5 minutes. My name is Jan Murray. I am a resident at 104 Lost Wayne Court, which is adjacent to Lot 2, and we've been there for over 17 years. And I wanted to say thank you to Aaron and Mike and Jennifer and the whole DRC for helping, and oh my gosh, to Ian and Gary and all y'all. We've really had a lot of conversations since last March, not since 2014, but I did give them a call in March when the dumpsters were coming, making a lot of noise on that property, and Ian took care of it right away. And I thank you guys for listening to our concerns and reading through our big booklet. I have some outstanding concerns I have one real quick question. Are the CCNRs part of this approval process that we're going through tonight, or are they later?
That would be later, according to Mr. Paulson.
Okay, I have a tremendous concern that particular design elements are dependent on these CCNRs, but they're not approved in concert with the dependent items. So I don't think it should be approved without the CCNRs that are correlating being articulated simultaneously. Again, pushing it down to future homeowners to keep that road clear for fire safety and for each other is a great concern to me, especially for Lot 3 where they can't even have a guest come over and park in the driveway and have a conversation because it's against the CCNRs. So they ought to have a place there. The other concern in regard to the CCNRs is the groundwater management. Again, I don't know what the requirements are on the future homeowners, but my understanding is they may have to do maintenance every 6 months or more frequently to ensure that this groundwater system is running free and clear, but I don't know, I haven't seen the CCNRs for that. I think that before we enter into a very complex engineering system where we're allowing an increase in impervious area relative to typical and to the original planning, in order to manage the groundwater runoff, we really want to see what are we expecting of future homeowners. And maybe it's very reasonable, but we have no idea what it is. And so, again, I'd like to see that with the plans. Okay, and then last, with regard to height and mass, I know y'all know it's consistent with the existing plans for this sort of residential area, but this is a unique property. It's actually a slope with a fairly significant grade. That's why they can't get from Blossom Hill into Lot 3 with the driveway. And so therefore, although this is not zoned hillside, it is at the bottom layer of a hillside. And there are a lot of concerns with that, and therefore these homes sit above my home. So they're not adjacent at 30 feet or below, they're actually above it.
Thank
so
you.
I think that it's not consistent. I had 5 minutes in the email that I received.
I'm sorry, you just have 3 minutes, and out of fairness, I have to allow 3 minutes to all the speakers, but you can stay there because we might have questions for you.
Okay.
Do any of the commissioners have questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, so it does say 5 minutes in the email that I received.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen your email, but I'm going to have to ask you to sit down. It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. You can send us written communications. Thank you. Suzanne Belshi?
Sienna's not here. She's tonight. She sent a letter to you and to
Thank you. Calling Peter Costigan?
Hello, my name's Peter Costigan. I live at 104 Last Wayne. Jan is my wife, so same house as Jan. And so Jan's covered most of my concerns. I'd like to echo thanks to these guys because they really have been listening to us and working with us. But we too still have a few concerns here. So let's see, I'm just trying to pick up anything that Jan didn't have time for. So she mentions one issue about the let's see, Joni mentioned one, which is on my mind because it was the last thing I heard, and that was about garbage. We're not too clear in the shared driveway. Are the garbage trucks going down it? Are people picking up garbage, or do they have to take it all the way to the end? Is there, is that a part of CCNRs, et cetera? I personally, on the driveway, have the concern that there isn't a sidewalk or a walkway for anybody. I mean, this is, families, presumably there'll be kids, and it's just a driveway with red striping on both sides. So, I would have expected to see and what's in it for me is maybe if they put in a sidewalk, they'll set the houses back further. So, there's some self-interest in this also, but I also think, how do people walk up and down the street? How do you park your car and then walk to the house without being, walking in a driveway that presumably has traffic coming and going on it? Next issue is about the height. So the developer has several options to reduce the mass and height of the proposed homes. One example is to continue the Lot 3 development, remove the rooms over the 2-car garages and reduce ceiling heights on the first floor ceilings from 10 feet to 1 to 9 feet, and lowering the second floor ceilings. The current proposal of 9'4" and 10'1" ceiling heights is both unnecessary and energy inefficient. Another option is to explore redesignating property 2 lot with 1-story homes under 18 feet in height. And I think that's it. I too, actually, in terms of privacy, I would like to see a higher fence than the 6-foot limit that Los Gatos has, because they are looking directly into my backyard from those homes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costigan. I believe we've got a question for you, and that'd be from Commissioner Erickson.
Okay.
So they adjusted the roof pitch and the pitch of the garage in the redesign, I believe, in both cases. So has that, from your perspective, adequately addressed what I understood were concerns from the documentation which you have about height relative to your house?
We would still like to see the houses shorter. Well, I mean, they're up above us so the elevation of the whole lot is significantly higher than our home, and so they have reduced the height of the buildings, but they still are pretty large. So the trees are all going to be gone, on this lot. We see a lot of those trees also, and what we think we're going to be seeing is just building, right? We won't see mountains. We miss some of the sky. And we would prefer shorter buildings.
So they haven't adequately addressed your concern about height.
Yes.
Is that the simple answer to your
Bottom
question?
line, yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't apparent to me because I didn't go in your backyard, but I've been on the site probably half a dozen times. How much of the tree vegetation was in that now, I mean, basically now all of the houses which back up to it have pretty significant vegetation between them. It wasn't between your street and the adjacent property. It wasn't clear to me how many trees were on your property that were contributing to that, and how many of them were on the subject property.
Yes, we have 3 large redwood trees on our property that block one corner of the house, but there are some thinner trees for the most part for the majority of our fence.
So then an 8-foot fence, which they're comfortable with, and your 3 redwood trees and the trees which they're proposing to put in that space wouldn't provide adequate.
Those trees start off at 8 feet. I think they've made them taller, but I think they start off fairly low, and there aren't any ride-along. They didn't put any ride-along on the other side of the fence from us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costigan. Our next speaker will be Terry Tersini.
Hi. So I also reside on Lassoon Court, but I'm at the end of the court. I'm here to support the development of these new homes because they'll be a really nice complement to the existing neighborhood, and Cleanupwood has been a real blighted site for years as we've all driven past it. I also support the project as I believe the site improvements will help improve the safety of the turn movement onto Blossom Hill Road from Union going westbound. I think it'll help alleviate, we can't control the traffic patterns, but I think it'll help alleviate that backup on Union, and as people approach Blossom Hill, it'll help give people a right turning lane. I would only like to request that there's, coming out of Lassoon Court, that we could get painted a keep clear on that road because it's really hard to exit our cul-de-sac turning left going north on Union because cars don't seem to see us, especially in the evening time, and it'd be nice to get that painted. There is a sign, I think, that says keep clear, but nobody sees it because it's far away, but that's all I request. And I respectfully encourage the Planning Commission to approve this project.
Thank you. Don't go away. Commissioner Erickson has a question for you.
So could you remind me, on your cul-de-sac, are there sidewalks?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so, but thank you.
Commissioner Kane has a question for you.
I just want to make sure your cul-de-sac is just opposite the project.
It's adjacent to it's right adjacent to the project.
It's across the street or same side street?
Same side of the street as yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
And I just wanted to ask, I was on your street, and as I was walking, do you have the same differential in grade between the property and your home as the others? Because, I mean, you didn't mention the height as being a concern.
No, because I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac.
And I
think we're a
thought your
little bit
street
higher.
maybe came,
It kinda
went
goes
up a
up,
slightly.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Thomas Mangano.
Tom Mangano, 112 Panorama Way. The only reason this project can go the way it's configured, as I understand it, is, as Paul explained to me, is because they're saying Blossom Hill is a frontage road. Therefore, that allows them to build a shared driveway. And basically, there's this... I've been after this issue for 5 years, and I've yet to get any legal answer on why this is legal. But I'm not here to debate that. But I think a shared driveway is a real problem issue. And most of the stuff that, anytime you have CCRs, that puts a burden on the neighbors, it puts a burden on the future homeowners, it puts a burden on the town. And the town has a problem with these things. And in my case, I was here 3 years ago. We have a problem with my CCRs. The town approved a pool project to destroy the CCR. So the price that everybody has to pay is you have to abide by the CCRs. And that includes the town. The developer makes his money, he goes away, and it's the neighbors and the homeowners that get stuck with the CCR. And the town needs to do its job, and I don't think this town is staffed to do it correctly. In our case, they haven't done it. Why in this case? You have this whole issue, who enforces no parking? Who enforces it? Now, in the case of Lot 3, couldn't we make the house a little smaller to get some parking on it? Why is every house 3,330 feet or whatever it is? And there's also laws that say Lot 2 doesn't even meet the 10,000 if you take away the shared access. in a flag lot, you can't call that pole, you can't count that square feet. But given this method, you're counting the square feet when the people don't even own it. And from the neighbor's viewpoint, these people don't even have a backyard. There's no vegetation between their house and the house behind them. It's just, it's not right. It's a loophole that is just not right.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't think
Mangano.
I'll have any questions.
There's a question for you from Commissioner Kane. You can't escape.
In your letter of July 30, you mentioned Loveladies Property Owners Association.
Right. And Kefauver or whatever it is, yeah.
Were you citing a precedent case on what we should do regarding the...
Ironically, if you look at the rules of a flag lot, it doesn't, they apply to these two rulings. You can't count the pole square footage. Okay. In this case, to get around the flag lot issue, we're allowing to have a shared driveway. And not only can you use a shared driveway, you could also capture all that square feet. And I just think that there's nothing in the town that says you can do it specifically. If I go to Palo Alto's code, there's a code that says you can do that. I go to Los Gatos, it's not that clear. And I just don't think it's right. I think it's a loophole. And the only reason they can do this is because they're counting Blossom Hill as a frontage road. However, then they turn around and say, well, we can't use Blossom Hill. It's too high. So it's not right.
Thank you.
Not right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker will be Lee Quintana.
Lee Quintana, 5 Palm Avenue. It seems to me that this whole issue on this lot revolves around whether you use a shared driveway or a flag lot. And it appears that while CDAC made the recommendation that they preferred Union Avenue and a shared driveway and not a flag lot, those recommendations were made prior to CDAC knowing that there were issues with drainage, issues with the fact that they can't access off of Blossom Hill Road, and without having any knowledge of the problems of enforcing the fire turnaround, or even knowing that there would be no real fire turnaround. I don't know of any other project in the town that has this kind of arrangement for a fire turnaround requiring that owner cannot park on his own driveway. I think that's totally unenforceable. So I think the slope of the lot, the characteristics of the lot, the fact of the high water table, which prevents the ability to use other kinds of mechanisms to meet the C3 requirements, all should be factored in, and you should be able to reach a conclusion that you can make the findings, either C or D, that this project should not be approved. I want to say that staff was very helpful to me in understanding the question of the fire truck turnaround, how that would be not enforced, that it would be simply voluntary enforcement. They gave me some indication of how the C1, the C3 requirements would be met, but I still am not sure how you enforce the homeowner from not altering the bioretention basins not altering the type of landscaping or using it as open space where you will compact the soils and destroy the ability of those things to function. So I think that there are reasons that this project can be denied and that a flag lot makes a lot more sense here. You don't have all the issues of shared easements, shared driveways, shared responsibilities, and things that are not enforceable.
And thank you, Ms. Quintana. We might have questions for you. Do any commissioner have a question for Ms. Quintana?
There are no other examples in the nearby area of a driveway, but there are flag lots right.
Thank you. So we have no more speaker cards. So now we will allow the applicant and his team 5 minutes to add further comments about the application. We normally wait till after.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you guys had questions that would help everything else. So, I appreciate everybody talking and bringing up their concerns. We have done our best to adjust and alter and make everybody happy, but we understand that that's not always going to be the case. And in this case, we feel that we are very reasonable as far as the height of this house. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One of the new conditions of approval is that they're not only allowing us, but they're actually almost requiring us to do an 8-foot tall fence along the north property line, and we're okay with that. We've actually asked Jan and Peter if they would like an 8-foot fence or if they want it 7 or 6 or whatever, so we're going to work with them. We actually, our driveway, shared driveway actually curves around away from their property by a couple more feet to help protect the redwoods that they have. They have 3 large redwoods, and so we certainly don't want to hurt those. That's one reason why we don't have a fire truck turnaround in the middle lot, that we have it at the end lot, because we just didn't have as much room to make that happen. But we've actually, so the road is away from them a little bit more. We did not put any more trees. If you look at the landscape plan, there's the lack of trees on their property because they have such a dense vegetation there and they were concerned about sun and shadows and stuff, so we didn't want to add to that, but we have also, when we met with them, offered we would be happy to plant in between their trees. We could plant our trees and create a better screen if that's possible. So that's on the table there. If you look at the condition of approval number 58, it clearly states what the CCNRs have to address, and we are all about that. We can make all that happen. This notion of policing the shared driveway happens a lot. Commissioner O'Donnell asked me if I've ever done something like this. I haven't done something exactly like this, but I've certainly done hillside homes where you have a shared driveway, multiple driveways. There's actually one in Creffield Heights. There's a shared driveway where Mr. Lochner lives and everything like that, and they keep that clear. So this happens in many places. There's Ms. Walters pointed out there's a street down just away that serves 9 homes, and if you look at that road, it looks like a bike path. So this is not impossible, and this is not impractical. And when they sell these homes, it's full disclosure that that's going to be on there, that when they have to be aware of these situations when you purchase this home. So it's not something that's just going to hide. The COAs also address maintenance of these bioswales. And Amanda Wilson, who's our civil engineer, is an expert at all this kind of stuff, and she can address it more, but she tells me that every 6 months or something like that, or a year, it's up to the state can check in on you. So if something's going wrong, the state can come down on us, or on the homeowner. think that's about it. If Mr. Betchert would like to speak for the last minute or so, and he's the main owner of this group here. And he has a speaker card. Do you?
Yes, and please state your name.
My name is Will Betchert. My wife and I have a principal ownership interest in the project. We live in Cupertino, or actually just outside of Cupertino. I'm a civil engineer in water resources. Anyway, I understand and appreciate what you folks do, so thank you very much for your civic participation. I'm glad this isn't a water project because it would be controversial if it were a water project. I've asked our planning team to be very conscientious in communicating with the neighbors and responding to their concerns. I believe they have. We've made every reasonable adjustment that we could to accommodate the concerns of the neighbors. And so, in my view, the project has been very carefully and responsibly planned, and it's to the point where it's...
Thank you, Mr. Belchart. Your time is up. Although you can stay there, we have questions for you, and Commissioner Hanson had her hand up first.
Well, I'm not sure if my question, this is for the applicant in general, right?
Yes.
All right, I wanted to ask about the bioretention ponds and the maintenance.
Amanda will answer.
And I ask, because I actually just got done taking a class on sustainable development and water. And so bioretention ponds, I think, was a great solution to the problem, but the first thing that it occurred to me that these are in people's yards. And my understanding was that they're going to ultimately drain into a perforated drain, which will feed into the town's stormwater management system, correct? Now, they're in people's yards. What are they supposed to do to maintain them? Because this isn't stuff that most people know anything about.
For maintenance, if they're built properly, which they will be, there's not much maintenance except for in the meanwhile, you need to establish the plants, which you would in anybody's front yard. And then it's weeding and making sure that the flora fauna is still there, so that the plants are still there to function as the whole system will. These are somewhat new, so in general, from what I've heard from people that come from Washington State that have more knowledge on these, that in 5 to 10 years, you may need to gut them and rebuild them. The system, these systems are actually going to be lined. So there'll be a lining on the bottom. There'll be the special soil to treat the stormwater. So no water will actually infiltrate into the ground. So the maintenance, there'll be a maintenance agreement that will be recorded. And I'm looking at Mike to confirm, but they'll be recorded against the property, so the property owner has to maintain it. And the town could come and check in on the property at any time to make sure that they are maintained.
And what happens if something goes wrong? I don't even know what might go wrong, but what happens if something goes wrong? I mean, this isn't they called their yard guy. I mean, this is more specialized than that. So what happens when something goes wrong?
Well,
if it does,
you'll be surprised that because these are becoming more and more common. More and more people know how to maintain them and fix them. Okay. The soil is, the only thing really special about them is the soil. And now it's more available in different facilities. So you just need to put in the special soil and put in the plants that we're speccing.
And has your firm implemented bioretention ponds in a residence before this?
Yes.
And it's been successful?
Yes.
Okay.
But like I said, it's all relatively new. I mean, last 5 to 10 years. We don't have one that's 20 years old.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
This isn't going to be a first?
No.
Okay.
Any further questions, Commissioner Hudes?
Question for Mr. Colsatt on the parking issue and the design of Lot 3. Did you consider other alternatives that would allow driveway parking or more flexible parking for Lot 3?
Yes, we did. There's actually there's a backup on Lot 3. Joel wants me to take the mic over here. On Lot 3, there's a shaded area that's required for the fire truck hammerhead turnaround. There's also a backup here, which was larger until we had to increase the size of the bioswale. The bioswale used to be about a third of this size when we had the previous original design that was submitted. There was a parking space here. So we think we still might be able to finagle a little parking space if we can move this back. If we can move this back, you could actually get a parking space legally on Lot 3. But keep in mind, they already have 3 parking spaces on Lot 3. And you'll have 4 and 9. So 13 extra parking spaces for 3 houses.
But in terms of the issue that's causing something in the CC&Rs, could that be eliminated by changing the parking configuration on Lot 3, maybe by reducing the size of the house or adding additional parking in the garage or something?
Oh, yeah, you certainly could get a 4th parking space if that's what you're asking. I'm not sure why you're asking for more than the standard. I'd like to understand what's your concern?
Well, my question was, would it change the need for something in the CC&Rs if there were more parking for that lot?
No. It wouldn't change the CC&Rs.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Erickson?
So thanks for the fine design and the hard work and the responsiveness to the customers. And I understand exactly the solution that you've chosen with the shared driveway and the parking requirements and so forth. And it's all perfectly legal and would be recorded, and I understand how all that works. From a practical standpoint, my sense is the best solutions are those which don't require high knowledge. They're kind of passive solutions. So hopefully the people who would live in these houses are friendly with each other, as you suggested they would. That also suggests that they might have friends come visit them periodically. So the opportunity for me to come visit them and drive my car and park, if I know the people in Lot 3, is for me to park on Union or to park in the 2 non-required off-site parking spots, which are actually at Lot 1, so 2 houses away. So my question is, you're an exceptional architect in my experience with coming up with great solutions to things. So are there ways that one could have laid out the lots and met the R110 zoning requirement and not have the 2 off-site parking spots that are inside of the parcel, not adjacent to house number 1, because I can park on Union when I come and visit house number 1. So I've located all of the potential visitor parking adjacent to lot number 1. And it seems to me, I would expect that you would have some creative ways to help make the parking, adjust the lot lines or something, and potentially the size of houses that would make compliance more passive rather than active, because passive compliance works better than knowledgeable, high knowledge and active compliance, in my opinion. So we're requiring, while it's all perfectly legal, I understand would be recorded, we're requiring knowledge and active compliance as opposed to more passive compliance.
I agree with you on all accounts. It is much better to go that way. Sometimes you can't always go that way. I'm going to ask my civil engineer a question real quick. So, as I mentioned originally, we had located our Hammerhead turnaround on Lot 2, which met fire department standards as well, until the arborist said we need to move our driveway away from Lot 2, the redwood trees on Lot 2. So, because we had 2 parking spaces all the way at the end, which were on Lot 3's Lot 3. And so that was kind of like the perfect scenario. And I've asked Amanda to take another look at this, if there's a possibility that we can shift the required fire truck turnaround to happen on the middle lot. And then what that does is that preserves the 2 parking spaces over there, which is much better for Lot 3. And Lot 2 has some right over here by Lot 1, and then et cetera. So that's what our original design had. We had a lot of complications with the C3s. We got all the way through. And then the neighbors complained that the plan that we had approved, essentially approved by the C3 consultant, was not going to work. It was ridiculous. It was wrong. And Fletch Parsons came on an interim and agreed with them and demanded that we completely change our design to this new bioretention system that does not infiltrate into the ground. Conventional wisdom is like, hey, we got all this water. We want to bring it into the ground, right? We're paving paradise. We want to bring the water into the ground. Well, that was what we did. They said, no, we already have so much water in the ground that it's not going to work. It's going to make our life miserable downstream. And so we changed everything. It was a major redesign. And in doing so, we moved the houses back and everything. I think that if it would be in the best interest of everybody if we could make that work. I can't guarantee it without doing some hard study, but that certainly would be the preferred perfect solution.
Commissioner Erickson has one more question, and then I'll move to Commissioner O'Donnell next.
So one other question. So I'm skeptical about the ability to turn left onto Union coming out of this. Would it be objectionable to the developer or to the project to restrict the turning out of this project only to a right turn? Would that be a deal breaker?
I have to say that the man who lived on that property for many years, he was able to turn left, right, everything. Every time I go over there, I know that there's heavy times of traffic. It's usually, there is that after school, and then it dies down again, and then it comes up around 5, 6 o'clock. Even that, I've been on that property, and I know that Tim and Ian have been on that property before, and you know, there's a lot of kind people when they're waiting at a light. They will leave, when they know someone's going to make a left turn, they're going to leave a space. I mean, I know you do for people. I do for people. So I don't see that as a major deal breaker for the people that buy these houses to be able to turn left during the rush hour. It's not going to be, you might have to wait a rotation, but certainly I think you can make a left. I think that would be a difficult thing that would be harder than saying you can't park on this driveway, I think, especially if, you know, you're going to.
There are design solutions that can accomplish that.
Okay, Commissioner O'Donnell.
I think I may have been on the CDAC when you folks came before us and we discussed flag lots versus this lot. And I remember, I think the 2 council ladies or women recited, I'm going to have to ask staff about it in a moment. I don't know whether it was a town policy against flag lots or whether it was just a perception they didn't like flag lots, which I assume that hearing that, you didn't pursue flag lots. But I'm just curious, because people have said, well, what about a flag lot? If you were to employ a flag lot on this property, did you ever give any thought to that, and would that work? I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just curious how it would work.
We were we were basically told by everybody not even to go there.
Okay.
So no, we didn't pursue it past our initial concept designs.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is there is, I think there's some serious issues to this. It doesn't mean that you would necessarily lose or anything, but we've been talking about this, there are issues. So I was trying to think, is there any other way? Just as Commissioner Erickson was asking a what-if kind of question. This obviously is it may be just impossible. But as I sit here and say, well, what if they did do a flag lot? Then I don't understand how you'd apply that to this. Forgetting for the moment that maybe you couldn't do it because of the town. You have been experienced enough to have worked, I believe, the flag lots in your experience. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you had a situation where you had to access a front lot and two back lots with a flag lot?
Yes, you still have a fire truck turnaround. The two flag lots don't work because then you have to have two flag poles.
Right.
So then you'd have to have two. So you can only do a flag on the single one, and it still might impact lot one as far as minimum square footage area.
Okay, I was having the same problem, but I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kane?
The tree that you're talking about that affected the turnaround on Lot 2, could you go to the schematic and show me approximately where that tree is?
There are 3 redwood trees, 1, 2, 3, and their root zone is out here. Our driveway is above that, and so the arborist said we're not going to be impacting their roots like you would if we were downhill. But
so they're not on the.
You see
they're
this
not on
little
the property itself. They're on the driveway.
They're on this property. You see, our driveway goes like this, and it curves.
Yeah.
And it goes back. So it moves out a couple feet away from the redwood trees. And this is what impacted the minimum of 20 feet of width that you need for this T hammerhead. So we would have to move, in order to make this, take this hammerhead, put it over here.
Yeah.
We'd have to move this house back like 2 feet, I think, 2 feet.
What if? Is there any way you could live with 2 parcels where you have parcel 2 would essentially be a balloon turn-in for parking vehicles as well as the fire department, and you put 2 houses in both of the corners on a 45-degree angle facing that balloon?
That we tried all different scenarios for different shaped lots. None of them worked. None of them were conforming.
Cost-wise?
No.
Because what I'm proposing seems to be pretty safe.
As far as the subdivision act, I mean the rules, the zoning, we could not make all the dimensions work.
And you would feel it would.
You understand 2 you're asking?
I'm talking about two lots on that subdivision.
Oh, making 2 parcels
Yeah.
instead of 3. Yeah. Financially, it's not viable at all. Each one of these lots is well over 10,000 square feet as it is. And so it would just.
Size doesn't matter.
The project would go poof.
It's not safe.
The project would go poof if they don't have 3 lots.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Kolstad? All right, seeing none, thank you. I am now going to close the public portion of the hearing and take a 5-minute break. right, the public portion of the hearing remains closed, so I will now look to my fellow commissioners for any questions, comments, or a motion. Commissioner Kane had his hand up first.
Very worried about the driveway. I'm worried about the parking configurations in there, and I share some of the neighbors' concerns. And what I don't, we don't design from up here, but I wish I could see a clear way around this. And we've had two suggestions. One was a bad one for me of putting in 2 units, but they could be really nice units. And the other was to reduce the size of the house in Lot 3 and try to get around what seems to be we're just cruising for a bruising to tell people they can't park in their own driveway. And then, God forbid, something goes wrong. Those are my concerns, and I look to my fellow commissioners for a way around this.
Commissioner Erickson?
So I have pretty much confidence in the design team that they can address some of the issues which are presenting concerns for the planning commissioner. So I'd like to offer a motion that we continue this item to a date that the staff will help us, a date certain that the staff will help us to determine, to give the design team an opportunity to address the issues which have been of concern to the commissioners this evening.
Commissioner Kane?
I would second that and ask also that in the event it's not already in front of us, just more detail on what can be done about the water problems that they have, whether the applicant can be a participant in that. I know you've talked about the drainage systems. Denzel Washington said, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Tell me that when you're done, it's going to be okay. I was out there today, and the water's running down the gullet. It's just, water's running. And Sky Blue, and the water's running. And I went, and there's a pipe coming out of the ground, and the water's just pouring out of that. It could have been a sub pump, or it could have been that mysterious, that place. If Governor Brown finds out about that place, he's going to put in a pipe, because they got a lot of water. So when we come back, talk to the neighbors and talk to us about, in addition to these other great modifications you come up with on design, that we're definitely going to improve a serious water problem in that area.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I am going to support this, but I just, to help out so people would know where I'm coming from, I'm very, very troubled. I've dealt with CCNRs as a lawyer and I've dealt with them individually. They are not self-enforcing, and when you've got 3 people that supposedly are dealing with CCNRs and only one of them really gets nailed on them, the other 2 don't care. It doesn't bother them. But the thing that will bother all 3 of them is if you park your car in an access that the fire truck's supposed to use, it's going to happen. And CCNRs are all well and good, and they're often 50 pages, and nobody pays any attention to most of it unless somebody does something. But I am very concerned about the fire access. I'm very concerned about the parking. This is a very strange lot. The fall off Blossom Hill is dramatic, and therefore there really aren't 2 frontages in a sense. There's a frontage insofar as you front, but there's not a frontage insofar as your access is concerned. So if they can come up with something that works, I'm all for it, because I'd rather have people do something than not do something. But I do not want to see a project go in that a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever, there's a fire and somebody loses a house, loses a life, whatever it is, because somebody's parked right in the way and that somebody isn't right there. I guess they could take a truck and push the car out of the way. Maybe they would. But that just doesn't sound safe to me. So I have that concern.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Hudes?
So I'm generally supportive of the motion as well, but I wanted to probe a little bit deeper into some of the traffic and flow issues that we may want staff to look into prior to considering this again. So I had a few questions about whether there was a provision for making a left turn from the driveway, if there were any alternatives that were looked at for doing that, whether staff had considered adding a stop sign prior to Blossom Hill Road on Union Avenue, whether that would help, whether the addition of the lane would increase the traffic flow, in their opinion, or decrease it. So I don't know if we want to do that now, or I have a few others as well that are sort of traffic and flow related.
Well, we have traffic and engineering from both the drainage perspective and the traffic perspective here this evening. If the commission is interested in having that information tonight, or just interested in having additional information in the next staff report, and/or their availability then to answer those questions, I leave that to the commission.
Okay, Commissioner Hanson had her hand up, and then Commissioner Erickson.
I'm generally in favor of the motion as well. I too have big concerns, having been on the Transportation and Parking Commission. There's no way that they're going to be able to enforce having someone not park in their own driveway. And I know for a fact that the town has only, for the entire town, 4 officers dedicated to parking, and they're going to be much more focused on downtown than they're going to be about some shared driveway. And so I share the concern about the safety, and I also share the concern about, well, with having parking for some people on Blossom Hill and on Union, and people with children walking up and down the shared driveway on top of that without there being a sidewalk in the property itself. I think there's a lot of concerns. And I also, along with Commissioner Hughes, have had a lot of questions about the whole plan for traffic. Although I see the value, I didn't realize when I first looked at it that some of the property would be given up to add the additional lane, and I think that makes sense. I'd like to hear from our traffic engineers what the whole thinking is on that, and how the flow of the bike lane works and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't have to be tonight. It could be, in form of some other explanation, but I'd like to know more about that.
Thank you. Commissioner Erickson?
I would make a suggestion to the chair that one act upon the motion, and then if it's possible for the commission to then interact with the staff about their concerns about the public improvements, because those are designed by the staff, not by the property owner and his design and their design team, and they simply react to what the staff does. So my sense is we could separate those issues and move the motion along, and then talk, and then give the staff feedback about if that's acceptable.
Thank you for your recommendation. Commissioner O'Donnell?
I agree with that. I guess the only thing I wanted to talk about is it might be helpful because we have staff here, if we at least chat briefly with them, so that if, to the extent they have more time to reflect, we will share with them some of our particular concerns, rather than forego giving them any input of what we're concerned with. Okay. So I would support the motion and to take the vote now.
All right, so let's take the vote. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Commissioner Erickson?
We just need to incorporate in the motion a date certain, but we would need the advice of the staff for that.
Can we set a date?
We can definitely set a date. We will look to the applicant to try to figure out. Right now, we're at January 27th. So I would think the absolute earliest, which would require the applicant to get us information by probably no later than the 12th, to get on the March 9th meeting. But I'd look to the applicant to see if they think they're able to pull that together that quickly. There is also obviously the option that if they're not ready, then we would just continue it to another date certain from that meeting to get additional information. But March 9th would probably be the earliest we would be able to set that for a new hearing.
I would so move.
All right, so Commissioner Erickson, was your part of the motion that we open up the commissioners' questioning to staff while they're here with the traffic engineer, or just wait until the next hearing?
Well, no, my motion didn't address that, but what I was suggesting to the chair was deal with the motion,
Okay.
the date certain, put that to rest, and then continue conversation with the staff tonight.
Okay.
So that they have the opportunity to hear the feedback, because if they want to, if the staff needs to make some adjustments to the public improvements, they need to be able to get them to the applicant in a timely manner that might or might not result from our feedback, so that they can get them to, so they can incorporate it in their revised proposal to the extent that they choose to revise their proposal.
Very good, thank you. Staff, get ready. Commissioners, if you
Chair,
have questions?
that we still need to make sure the seconder is okay with the 9th and then take the vote on the
All
date
right.
certain.
Is the seconder okay with the date?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Commissioner O'Donnell?
On questions, one of the things I'm just going to throw out as a possibility is if the staff would discuss with us now, they've been sitting there listening to this. We have, the issues of the bicycle lane, we have the issues of, one argument is, it's an argument against freeways and roads because it says every time you build one, all you do is get more people, which seems to suggest if you didn't build roads, you wouldn't have people, which I find a little difficult to believe. But, so I guess the question is, if you add another lane there, will that help traffic, or will, as one suggests, attract more traffic? So I'm sure you folks have had experience with everything, and we would anticipate the way the valley grows that someday, even if it doesn't attract more traffic today, there will be more traffic. But anyway, I was just wondering if the staff has some comments on the issues we have been raising, which just again, to tick things off, the people are going to come out of this development and they're going to go right, and they're also going to want to go left. And so I like your comments on that. There was a request that the bicycle lane perhaps be longer than it is shown. And then there are questions about the access for the fire trucks getting all the way into the third property with the hammerhead turnaround. So you folks would deal with these kinds of issues all the time. So if you could just give us some of the comments, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Jesse Poole, Town Traffic Engineer. A driveway at this distance from intersection is not uncommon. This lane configuration provides clear delineation. If you are turning left, you stay on this lane. If you are turning right, you should use this lane. There was a request for a bike lane along the curb line to encourage traffic staying away from the curb. Staff can work with the applicant if we can extend the delineation further up. If we can do the same thing as we have here with parking lane along the curb line, which is wider than the bike lane, it will help more. So staff can work with the applicant if we can extend the delineation further up.
Commissioner Hanson?
So just to confirm, this has been, there's a lot of places that the town wants to have bike lanes, but there are no bike lanes that I recall, at least not on that portion of Union. I don't even think, at least up till maybe, Los Gatos Almond, and it might be more on Los Gatos Almond. I don't remember seeing any. So this would, if it doesn't change, basically it's just going to be that little tiny strip of bike lane and then nothing before it. I mean, they just have to ride along the curb.
Yes. Yes. Staff try to implement complete street policy wherever we can, and that includes a bike lane wherever we can. And with this bike lane here, it will help bicyclists try to make a left turn onto Blossom Hill Road.
Okay, well, it's at least a start. I wanted to also ask about the parking on Blossom Hill. You don't see a lot of people parking on Blossom Hill, so what's going to make that safe? I mean, because there's so much traffic on Blossom Hill all day long. I realize it's going to be a little bit off from the road, but what's going to make it safe? And that's going to be people, they're going to hop on the sidewalk and walk around to the property?
Yes. Staff continue looking into how to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. And by completing the improvements, connecting the existing sidewalk on Union and the sidewalk on Blossom Hill, give us an opportunity with the complete width of Blossom Hill Road, give staff an opportunity to look into a future capital improvement program to stripe protected bike lane here and contain the vehicular traffic close to the center line.
Isn't Blossom Hill in that area San Jose?
I believe San Jose is further west, section of San Jose.
I thought Los Gatos' responsibility on Blossom Hill ended at El Camino del Cerro. I remember hearing that when I was involved in it, but maybe something's changed. But I mean, clearly the parking and the sidewalk would be in basically the property of the town of Los Gatos once
for this
set aside for this. But when you're on the street itself, I think that part is San Jose.
The entire street width is in Los Gatos.
So that section is the responsibility of Los Gatos?
Yes.
Okay. So the intent would be to stripe the area around there to make it safe?
Yes.
And there's enough buffer in between the parking area and the street for people getting in and out of parked cars?
I'm sorry?
There's enough buffer from the parking area in the street for people getting in and out of parked cars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Hudes?
What's your thinking about residents leaving these 3 homes and turning left, or turning right and then trying to turn left onto Blossom Hill? Because there's not a lot of opportunity further down Blossom Hill to make a U-turn or anything.
Yes. My estimate for 3 single-family homes, there will be about 3 cars exiting the driveway during the commute hours, and that's the peak hour. And that's like 1 car coming out of the driveway every 20 minutes. And assuming half of them turn left, half of them turn right, we're talking about perhaps every 40 minutes there will be a car making a left turn, trying to cross the queue the vehicles, and that's only during the commute hour. And for the rest of the day, there wouldn't be any issue. But if you are coming out during the peak commute hour, you may have to wait a little bit, waiting for someone to give you a gap. But that's, I'm describing the more, how the condition.
Commissioner Hudes, you had another question?
Yeah, so you would not recommend no left turn from the driveway?
I would not.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Kane?
You know better than I do, but that's what I was going to say, because it's no different from them than it would be for the folks on Lawson Court. They're going to make them a right turn only. Plus, as it exists right now, if you do make that right turn, you got nowhere to go. You get out of Blossom Hill, you go 10 miles one way or the other, try and turn around. And most of what you want is to the north, not the south. So if they want stores and the shopping center, they're going to want to make that left turn. The people heading south, if that's the right direction, on Union are not the problem, because they will stop. The problem is the folks making the turn off of Blossom Hill and heading north. They're like a bat out of hell, because those are the ones that almost got me today. Not the ones coming this way. They go, oh, I'm going to stop. But the guys coming around the corner, maybe they thought they had extra points for hitting a planning commissioner. I don't know. But they come around there real fast, and that's certainly what I would be concerned with.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yeah, that's precisely my concern, because if my measurements are correct, if I walked it off, there's 3 to 4 car lengths from the corner to where this driveway ends. So I'm going to be turning left, crossing 2 lanes of traffic after this is, and the slope from the Blossom Hill intersection to this driveway is downhill, which means the people that regularly drive at a reasonably quick pace on Blossom Hill are going to turn right, and they're not naturally going to slow down as if they were going uphill. They're going to naturally speed up. So I think it increases the probability so that there would be an accident. And while I would not dispute your numbers, I don't want to be the one person who's turning left who has the accident.
Yes, it's the difficult time to exit the driveway is during the commute hour when there are queuings on the streets. In that situation, if you want to make a left turn, you have to look, and you have to either you would have to wait until the end of green when cars clear, you come out, or you wait for people to give you a gap, and you come out with caution, look both ways. That's driver's caution.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
You know, what I would do, of course, is I'd wait for the gap to appear, then I would cross 2 lanes to the gap, then I've got to look to my right, so I'm going to sit there. The nice people that gave me the gap, 2 lanes, and I'm going to sit there blocking them because I can't complete until the guys coming the other way go through it. So I think you're going to find that the friendliness of people giving that gap, may not wear well. And then secondly, if you've got 6 adults in those 3 houses, it's been my experience that a lot of people work. And the concept that at the rush hour, you've got 6 adults paying for these houses, and only 1 or 2 of them are going to go out in the rush hour makes no sense to me. It flies in the face of experience. And I have often found that with traffic engineers, but they still say that.
Commissioner Hanson?
I share the concern about the left turn. I'm just visualizing myself doing it, and not only do they have to go across those 2 lanes of traffic, but you got all the, let's just say in the morning, the traffic's all going east on Blossom Hill, or no, west, that is. So they're going to be, if they want to go down Union, they're going to take a right, and they're going to be taking a right as long, and there's no reason for them to stop. And then you've got this other guy coming out of this new development turning left, and not only are they coming across 2 lanes of traffic, but they have the people that they can't see that are on Blossom Hill turning right. Is there anything that can be done to make that safer?
Staff will look into that.
I don't know if maybe there's a right turn signal, on Blossom Hill going down to Union or something like that. But to me, that just seems like there's going to be an accident. It's just a question of when.
Commissioner Hudes?
I had another area that I was concerned about is the Blossom Hill parking and that fence where there's a 10-foot drop. First of all, is parking on Blossom Hill, is that beneficial to the town or simply to getting these houses built over there? Is that something that's needed?
All on-street parking are benefits to the public. In general, red curb or parking prohibit is where there is a safety issue, and then we will prohibit on-street parking. But in general, if there is no safety issue, we tend to allow on-street parking.
So in your opinion, is there a need for parking on Blossom Hill over there?
It will be needed if there is overflow parking, because of the visitors, party or holiday season. There will be, but in general, I have not seen a lot of cars park on that section of Blossom Hill Road.
So that would be the benefit for those houses that are being built there primarily. In terms of the discussion about the fence, is that sufficient to prevent a car from going through that and into that 10-foot drop into the yard?
There is a sidewalk. Well, there will be a curb cut and sidewalk, and I probably had to consult with coworkers, if there is a standard design for that situation, a particular type of a guardrail, but I believe they probably have look into that.
Okay, that would be something I'd be interested in hearing. And I had one more question.
Go ahead.
It was more general. This was related to the town's experience with this type of a parking configuration on private property. It was stated by several people, but I don't think from town staff, whether this exists elsewhere in town. And so I'd be interested to know whether town staff can answer that question. Does this exist elsewhere in town?
Hi. There's two examples that come to mind where there's shared driveways, and that would be at the Sisters Project on Prospect, and then also on Reservoir, the project there.
And are they in some way analogous to this?
So I'll jump in. So they do have the shared driveway scenario, but they do not have the same scenario where you have a property in the shared driveway where you cannot park in your driveway or in the apron in front of your garage. So they don't have that. They just simply have the shared access is the similarity.
Okay. And related to that, I'm a big believer in trust and verify, and I know that we've heard from the developer that they've done this elsewhere. I'm wondering if staff can check and look at some of these other configurations that they say are identical to this to see how well it's worked in terms of, particularly in the issue of, where there's a situation where neighbors are told they can't park in their own driveway.
And so we will definitely provide that direction, and the applicants are here. They've heard that. So if they have other more similar scenarios to bring forward and some input relating to that, then we'll have them bring that forward.
Thank you.
Commissioner Erickson?
So I think in general, the traffic, parking, circulation improvements that are being proposed are terrific. I understand why we would allow the parking to go on that stretch on Blossom Hill, but if in fact there's a way that in the town's future vision they can eliminate, which is arguably one of the most dangerous biking areas in the town, and I live in that end of town, and I bike all the time, and I can tell you I never go over Blossom Hill. So there's an opportunity to initiate a biking lane, or at least to reserve that in the future. And I've walked that whole thing to try to figure out, is there enough space to add biking lanes? Because people regularly bike over there, and there's no shoulder in good shares of it. So to the extent that we could capture this as part of a long-term solution and not have people become dependent upon parking so that one has to then at some later moment in time argue with them about why we're removing parking, that could be part of a longer-term significant safety issue improvement for biking in that area. I might restrict parking on that basis if there's any possibility that one can figure out how to get bike lanes over the hill.
And so I think the first piece will be that staff will take a look and confirm that even with on-street parking, there is still room for potential bike lane. And then we're also going to be beginning a bicycle and pedestrian master planning process. So we'll make sure that some of that feedback is in there. I'm sure this will be one of the areas that we'll look at because we're going to be looking at town-wide. But those are a couple opportunities that come to mind.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Paulson, do you have a report for us this evening?
I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay. Do any members of the commission have an issue to bring to the attention of the commission? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.